All right. So you guys probably have a few questions. Why did you spend 4 hours reading this? Was it worth it? Uh, it can be explained by sunk cost fallacy. Started reading, realized it was too long. Um, kind of got sucked into it. Two, FiveM's been a big part of my life, and I've been on the outside of seeing all these breakdowns. Like, here's the website for those interested. I've been on the outside of seeing these breakdowns for some years. Like, if you're familiar with FiveM, even NoPixel, you'll know that the founder has unstable days. I don't know what to call it. There's explanation in this document about how those occurred and why those occurred, allegedly. However, for me, as a user of FiveM, it was interesting to see what the internal state was that led to these situations. Because for the average user, basically, what's happening? Basically, FiveM used to go down until like about a year ago, until Rockstar took over. Really, it used to go down regularly, about like once a month. And it would be some cryptic message, and their Twitter would have some stuff on it like, "It's over, I give up, I can't do this anymore," and everyone would be like, "Oh fuck," and then Nikes or someone on the NoPixel dev team would usually come in and like, stoke the fires and like, "All right, listen, it's okay, we're talking with them, they're gonna be fine. Just take the day off." And it wasn't a big deal because granted, a lot of role players were like, "All right, fine, this is a perfect day for everybody involved to go do variety together." It was actually a really interesting day because I actually look forward to those days, if I can be honest, because it forced a lot of people to make content outside of roleplay and do variety content that they probably wouldn't have without it. And so there's a lot of fun days looking back that were caused by these like outages. That we ended up playing like squad or something with a group of people that I knew but not that well. So I'm not that mad about it. Most people shouldn't be. It is what it is. But that's kind of why I'm so interested in this. Is like I find the origins and the history of FiveM kind of interesting because it's something that was a big part of my life, continues to be, and we'll see if it is in the future. So now your actual questions about what is this? Who is it written by? Like, what is this, right? This is essentially a manifesto. It's a, let's see, it's a 73,000 word document with 400,000 characters and 3,000, almost 4,000 sentences that takes 4 hours to read through. And that is excluding the many, many, many screenshots. I would equate this to be about this is about 100k words if you include the screenshots, because there's a lot of screenshots that have words on them. So it's about 100k words, maybe like 80, maybe like 90k. Why is it so long? Well, because essentially this is what I believe, and I'll give you my perspective. I'll tell you what it is, and I'll tell you what I think it is. What it's allegedly is a takedown on the history of FiveM and the alleged takeover of FiveM by, as this person would have you believe, sociopaths that are in control now. It's written much like a manifesto. I mean, it really is a manifesto. It's very dramatic. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's very dramatic. The way that they write stuff is very dramatic. They have a decent writing style, though. This person should just be a writer. Like, so now let's talk about the actual question. Who is this written by? And for that, we have to skip to the bottom. So that's going to be about 73,000 words to the bottom. As we scroll there, I'll explain. They say who the alleged writers of this are. I'll have you know, it's not who I believe it is, but let's see. They wrote it somewhere in here. I get TLDR. It's very, very long. It takes a while to get through this. I believe it is allegedly. This is this is who wrote this essentially. They would have you believe that it is a group of well-known members of the community interested in what happens to FiveM. A coalition wrote to publish this article, and that may be true. It may be true that there's a coalition of people that were essentially community contributors to FiveM that have become curious and even upset with the state of FiveM and the sellout to Rockstar, and they wanted to know what was going on, so they did some investigative work to find this out, right? This is what they claim the authorship is. To me, it's clearly too deep. It's clearly two people. And there may be a group of community members that helped them write this. There may be an authorship team that wrote different sections. But to me, if this was a research paper, there would be two names at the front and then maybe a few other names that help them assist them, right? I mean, it's 73,000 words. This is essentially a research paper. It would be hard to write this on your own and spell check it and, grammatically check it. And there are spelling errors. But all things said, it's completely possible there is a team that wrote this. But in my opinion, there's two people, and primarily one. I would put about 80% of the thoughts and authorship of this document on one person. And if you read it, it comes to me. I knew who wrote this. I think I had a strong guess at who wrote this. Like, let's go back up a little bit. A little further. Right. No. A little further, actually. I think I had an idea who wrote this right about here to give you a perspective. Here's a sidebar, if you can see that. We're about, I don't know, a 12th way through it or something. That's kind of when I started to pick up on who the author was. And a lot of people are going to be like wondering, who are these people, right? And they put a nice little cast of characters, which I think, honestly, it's a nice touch. It does help for parsing it. However, unfortunately, there are many people that aren't on here that really should be. It's not comprehensive, they say it. But there should be a few more people that matter. Let's go through the people that, that matter on this list to the story that's playing out, right? How long did it take him to write this? I would estimate about 5 months, because that's about the time. I'll get there. I'll answer that question. I'm gonna spoil myself if I do that. So who is here, right? We have the names and all the names they've gone by. We have their current role at Rockstar, or their role at the role for the majority of this, their role at Rockstar, maybe not current. And then you have their affiliation. Affiliation is going to be like who they're loyal to within the interpolitical drama that plays out here, right? So the bad guys. Let's just be straight up. This document paints bad guys and it paints good guys. The bad guys. You have the biggest bad guys. You have Groot, who goes by many different names. Deltanic, Remy. Remy is their real life name. Deltanic, Groot. Groot's their last name, actually, I found out. So it's Remy, DeGroot or something, but their other names are Deltanic and Techninium. It's not doxing, by the way, because they're literally in the credits they're in the credits for GTA 5 at this point with their full name. So if this person didn't want to be doxed, they wouldn't be in the credits. I'm putting that out there. This guy's name is Remy DeGroot. I'll get back to that person. They're the ringleader of the Groot gang. You have Thers, Sasha, Neonium, or whatever. You're kind of going to notice a trend here. You have Technidium, Neonium, Titanium, Zyrinki, Silicone. These guys kind of all like to the elements, and that comes back into play later. But they also have their actual handle, which is Thers, Pneumonia, Zyrinki, or Zin, Pain, and Deltanic or Remy. So this is a group that allegedly, just to summarize things for you real quick, this is the group that is referred to as the sociopaths that took over right here. These are the bad guys, long and short. This group actually doesn't matter at all. You can pretty much just ignore this group for about 80%. 90% of this document does not pertain to this group. They never come up. They come up at the very ends. Ethan Hirsch is a interesting character that comes up, and I think probably if there was an innocent party, it would be Ethan Hirsch from my reading of this. Now let's talk about the heroes. This document alleges we have NTA or NT Authority. NTA is for short of that. They also go by Bubble or Hydrogen or Blatherstorm. This is the hero, I guess the original founder that got replaced. You also have Disc or Alexi. This is the Red M guy actually, but he also worked heavily on FiveM. This is the I'm gonna give you a spoiler, you guys. This is the author of this is the author document. I believe there is in my mind, as a reader of this document who's read, I would say 89% of it. I did skip some swaths of it near the ends that just weren't relevant, and I'll get into that later. Why I didn't read that and why I don't think it was relevant. But I believe Alexi is probably the primary author, or at least the brainchild behind this document. But I'll get into that. Further on, we have LWSS, who is a anti-cheat. This is their anti-cheat guy who takes over. Runs the anti-cheat for FiveM, essentially. Gottfried, who is a FiveM developer. Not a big player in this, but well respected by the other groups. Not really a big problem. Thorium, another guy who doesn't really come up that much. Kind of just a coworker and all this. Tabara, another one of these kind of like, hey, they were there. Okay. Anyway, so let's explain the authorship, right? For me, in my minds, Alexi wrote this with the help of LWSS, and I believe he wrote it from a place of guilt about the way that the whole thing went down with the acquisition of FiveM and the way that NTA was abused or allegedly abused. I can't comment on whether it actually happened or not. I mean, this could be fiction for all we know. But now, let me just address some things, right? So, is it real? Do I believe this is real? I think there is a very high chance the vast majority of this is true. And while it's definitely one side of a two-sided story, I do think the core narrative is probably accurate to a degree, right? And let me paint that for you, right? So if you read the foreword, it's it's the story of FiveM. Humble beginnings as a solo developing mod, fully featured story, yada yada. And then sociopaths come in and take over it, right? And then now Rockstar is employing these sociopaths who still run FiveM and are in control of the future of modding GTA 5. So let's start at the beginning, right? What is the story actually being told, right? The story is being told of FiveM, which for those of you who watch the channel should know, but a cursory explanation is that FiveM is the layman's term for it's the program for the #1 modding and private server application for GTA 5. It is just #1. There's nothing else out there. When it started, it was made basically by one single person who the founder called NTA. They go by many different names, but NTA is going to be like their moniker. NT Authority, NTA, whatever, right? This person starts off as a young person, around 22 years old or something, allegedly. They have a lot of pictures of early development here. They're the person who started it. Basically, they were a modder and tried to do some open server stuff for Call of Duty back in the day when they were much younger. And then when GTA 5 was coming out, they had been working on GTA 4. And they were working on a tool, I think it's mentioned here somewhere, that they were basically, when GTA 5 came out to PC, they'd been working on Citizen MP, which is a project that is a game-enhancing project for GTA 4. So they had a unique position to already be kind of ready for GTA 5. So as soon as GTA 5 hit, they started working on it and trying to, not crack it, but trying to make it a better platform for modding, and it was open source. The good faith element is definitely there in my mind. Anyway, so you can see some early screenshots here of NTA working on it and other people, It's all open source, and the key narrative here is that NTA was working quickly and steadily, and that their core philosophy was, we want to build upon others' experience, and instead of each person going through issues and solving them themselves, we open source it so we can collectively progress this way faster. The project quickly became called FiveM. I'm gonna miss a lot of nuance here, so if you have questions, feel free to ask. But basically, they're improving the project, so on and so forth. At some point in 2015, Take-Two, under Rockstar's allowance, Take-Two being the publisher of GTA 5, Rockstar being the developer, Take-Two bans all this guy's accounts and starts banning the accounts as soon as they're made. Thank you for the gift of sub, man. So these were just straight up bans, right? And that's the first that's the first real contact from Rockstar or Take-Two towards this NTA person who is developing this open source FiveM. They go on to restrict even talking about FiveM on GTA Online, etc., etc. Essentially, NTA had already been sued, or already had not suits, but legal problems with Activision over their 4 Delta 1 project, which was on Call of Duty, same kind of thing on Call of Duty. Essentially, there's another important point here too that won't come up until very later, but I have to establish it early on, is that during the very, very start of development, there was a rival mod called GTA:MP. And it's important to note that these developers go on to join Rockstar before FiveM did. So we'll go on and we'll pause that, come back to that later, right? GTA:MP comes back around, trust. Anyway, so essentially, in 2015, Take-Two stops fucking around. They're not just banning his accounts anymore. They moved on to sending private investigators to NTA's house and trying to get him to sign a cease and desist. They were not willing to sign the cease and desist. It has implied some very shady tactics by Take-Two, which is probably backed up by the fact Take-Two has done this kind of thing before. So I kind of believe that Take-Two was being kind of shitty about this. I mean, Take-Two kind of has a public history of private investigators and suing modders and stuff. Love it or hate it, it's the way it works. Anyway, the important thing to note is that NTA always asserts that they always had a check inside the game that makes you think, or sorry, the NTA would have you believe and asserts that there's always been a verification that you have a legitimate copy of GTA 5 before you can use FiveM. I, as a consumer, can verify that at least since 2017, that has 100% been the case. I've never tried to work around that. I don't know if there's any workarounds. I've had a copy of GTA 5. You've had to have a copy of GTA 5 for years. There may be some underhanded shit going on with servers faking it for you or whatever. I don't know. But I'm just verifying what I can is that that is true to my knowledge, at least in 2017. In 2015, I have no idea. Basically, quickly what happens is NTA gets sued as a 23-year-old with no finances and no real ability. They lose the court case, and they are then basically legally restricted from ever working or modifying any Take-Two project ever again. It's a legal restriction. It's you can see it documented right here. Basically, NTA was legally prohibited from working on anything related to Take-Two ever again. Take-Two sent spies to infiltrate FiveM chat rooms. Basically, this is going to paint the picture for a lot of mental trauma in the future and a lot of sensitivity around working with Take-Two or a Rockstar in the future, which, spoiler, does happen. Basically, they get crushed. But as we know, FiveM rises again. Basically, the chapter here is that NTA sees people still working on it, sees that they're not really doing it the way that he wanted to, and decides to get re-involved. He recruits some members of the community who were working on it in the right way, and says, okay, we're going to work on it again, but now I'm going to be protective. I'm going to hide my identity better. So they then create the Citizen FX Collective, which is essentially it's a fake group of accounts called Elements that appear as though FiveM is being developed by a large team rather than a single individual. As time goes on, he invites community members to join his Elements to further obfuscate how many people are working on it and make it harder for NTA to get legally sued into the ground again. We'll skip past a little bit. Anyway, basically, it's going well. Development starts going well. Take-Two doesn't bother them for some time. Rockstar neither. You can see a lot of the happy tweets. This part is painting a picture that things are going well. They're expanding. It's going well. This is back in 2018. So this is back when I started playing. I started playing right in the end of 2018, 2017. So yeah, this is when I got on NoPixel, 32 slots, right? And I can attest that this was a big deal back then. Basically, 2017 to 2018 is when they started doing 64 slot servers, right? And important to note here too, there are terms of service that NCA had that were basically, if you play FiveM, you're not allowed to charge for money on anything, because that would basically give Rockstar a reason to come after FiveM again. Is if they were making money off this project, then Rockstar Take-Two would come after NCA again. So NCA was very protective over the terms of service because NCA didn't want to get sued again and lose the project again. So what happens is NCA starts taking down servers that are monetizing against the terms of service for FiveM, and a lot of those server owners would then lead raids on the FiveM's Discord server, social media accounts, and DDoS them. Unfortunate, but it's kind of like either Take-Two comes after us and kills FiveM again, or I take down your server and they DDoS us. But, you know, it is what it is, right? Basically, in this era, this is when the central authorization server existed, Keymaster. Basically, it's just a... Keymaster is a term for the authentication system that verifies you actually own GTA 5 with a legitimate copy. So Take-Two will calm down because everyone who play it basically is just indicating to Take-Two, everyone who's playing this mod has a real GTA 5 account. Please don't fuck with us. We move on a little bit, right? Back to the positive stuff. This is when in 2017, 2018, they start chasing the 64 slot server dream, which is up from 32. 32 was, I mean, you guys wouldn't even believe. If you're a new RP viewer, I know some of you will have been watching or themselves participating back in 32 slot servers. I don't know how we did it these days. 32 slots is, it's tough to imagine 32 people on a server. And I think back then on NoPixel we had 5 cop slots. It was a lot. It was a lot of ground to cover for 32 people, man. It was I think people did a much better effort at making an effort to interact with people back then because it was so barren. Anyway, so they start chasing the 64 slot dream and they start testing big servers, right? One of the issues they come to here, and this is going to be an introduction of a very important character who I believe is the author of this article, Disc, or Alexei. You can call him either one. One is his real name, one is his username. I might be pronouncing it wrong. It's Disque or something. He's Russian. I'm gonna give it to you straight. He's Russian. Disc is probably not a name I'm great at pronouncing. Disque, whatever. I'm gonna call him Disc. If that's incorrect, sorry, Disc, but it's just for the ease of summarizing this. Anyway, so as these tests are going on, Disc is going to be an important character because this is a person who had been a community contributor for a while, substantial community contributor. You can see right here. Disc is one of the people that was helping a lot with OneSync, basically a key component and contributor, volunteer for free, that was trying to help them expand to 64 slots, and was a big organizer to help make, like, basically, Disc's role in this early stage was reaching out to local FiveM communities to make a big OneSync test. Because the big problem was, to test 64 slots, you need at minimum 64 people to even test the server. And on top of that, you need 64 people that are willing to log their bug reports, video record properly, and actually report issues. Essentially, it's very hard to do when FiveM was this small back in the day. So he's a key component of organizing people into a collaboration to actually test for OneSync. It ends up working. You can see some screenshots here. of how many people are on the server, and basically a lot of issues get hammered out, and they solve the issue. But here's a video from Disc back in the day if you want to watch this. This is
46, пока не
this
лагает.
is him. This is his YouTube channel. If you're curious, this is how the tests look back in the day. I never participated in these, I don't think, to my knowledge, but he has an hour-long recording if you're curious how these looked and what was going on. But we go back to the video here. Anyway, it took a while, but they got it. They got 64 slots. And then the next expansion was 2048, which is what we currently have to this day. It was a lot of work went into it, and I'll give them credit. I was a player at the time, and I watched this slow transition from 32 to 2048. They are talented developers with a lot of work ethic. Basically, you can see Disc here typing in Russian. Basically, what happened here was a lot of testing and stuff. This is largely irrelevant to the narrative, but it's painting a picture of how hard they worked. And I think that's important to the story, is knowing that these guys worked really hard on this, and they did it for free, basically, at this era. They eventually got it, though. And then in COVID, basically, a lot of people come to the game. It starts off at 50K before 2020. It goes to 170 by early 2021. It's an insane level of growth, and basically, this FiveM project is still solely being run by NTA and community contributors, unpaid volunteers. Now we're going to get to the Red M release. This is when Disc really becomes involved in FiveM and Red M. Disc is already a heavy contributor, one of the top ones. They are basically the brainchild behind Red M. Disc is the only person maintaining Red M at all. But they make Red M. Red M is basically just FiveM, but for Red Dead 2, if you don't know. It's what Wild RP, other servers run. It's always been the redheaded stepchild of FiveM, unfortunately. But you can see some progress. You know, this is a GTA 4 map with the Red Dead 2 engine. And then we're gonna get to the actual drama, the beginning of the actual drama that begins the beginning of the ends. So essentially, at this era, we're gonna go into late 2019, early 2020. This is when the infrastructure payments and stuff were just becoming too much. And NTA, or FiveM, basically the only guy behind FiveM, starts putting up a Patreon and financially incentivizing the server so we can support all the infrastructure stuff. During this time, there's no hiding it, but FiveM was unstable. These things happened where you can see these tweets where they would do these random tweets where the servers would go down, and this part is largely to establish that these breakdowns happen prior to the introduction of the story's enemies, right? The villains. But anyway, by early 2020, they actually had enough money to hire a few employees, right? So they also indicate, like you might suspect, it's very hard to hire for a project like this. You really can't hire anyone fresh out of college with a good development resume, because they could just go to a real company and get a 401k. So essentially, the only people you can hire are who is available to you and community contributors. So here we go. We're beginning of the ends starts in 2020. These are the introduction of the two greatest villains of the story. We have Deltanic and Theris, who are introduced here. These guys are they are introduced as allegedly trying to join the project and already quit their jobs to work on FiveM. NTA did not notice them as notable figures in the FiveM community, but after persistent persuasion, thought, why not? Apparently, Theris was a minor contributor with a few UI improvements. Deltanic had basically no involvement, but was going to work as a documentation. Ended up working as kind of a manager of the like project manager is kind of the best term for it. Alongside these two, the third employee that was brought in was Disc, as you might guess. Disc, one of the most active contributors, already made significant contributions. Important to note, Disc's English was quite poor back then, as he's Russian, a Russian national. I think it's important to note, but the author doesn't note at this time, that Deltanic and Theris are also Russian, to my knowledge. Russian nationals, although they do move out of Russia prior to Disk. And, obviously, if you're thinking Russian 2020, 2021, 2022, you're right. We are looking at the Russian-Ukraine war occurring very quickly here. So that's going to come up. But not a lot. Not as much as you think. All right. So then we go into the next few hires. We have Duck, who's the anti-cheat engineer. NTA, the founder and leader. There is a UI guy. Deltanic, the project manager. And Disk, the other software engineer. They work through Telegram. Another important thing to note is NTA is Dutch. So this is an entirely European team, if that matters to you at all, to paint a picture to you. Now, let's delve into the interpersonal drama of the situation. Disk claims that, this is all written in a objective third-party point of view, but, I've already told you, I think Disk is the author of this document, and you'll see a lot of insight from Disk, which only someone intimately familiar with them or Disk themselves would be able to articulate. However, I can understand. Let me just lay something out. I think this document is written by Disk as kind of an apology and clearing the air because they have immense respect for NTA and realize that they may have played a small role in the way that things went down and they feel guilty about it. They have immense respect and reverence for NTA and their coding ability and feel like they played a small but significant role in the fall of FiveM and the acquisition to Rockstar. And to me, this feels like an apology letter. Like, hey, NTA, I'm going to be honest about what you were, but I'm sorry I let it go down this way. And here's the truth. So everyone knows it's not NTA's fault. So anyway, as we move on, this basically initially views the other three hired on as a tight-knit group of friends and doesn't intervene in these interactions. Which is basically the interaction is that Thurs and Deltanic become proactive in building a relationship with NTA. Essentially, they try to buddy up to NTA and become personal friends. Disk is basically working on Red M and working on OneSync. Duck is working on anti-cheat. Things are going well. They put out some hiring advertisements. You can see here on Hacker News. This is their hiring advertisements looking to hire people. Anyway, here's what happens. Deltanic takes over as the project manager and becomes basically non-responsive most of the time and doesn't help build anything. Just as a complete turd. Is unhelpful, allegedly. Deltanic, also known as Technidium, also known as Remy or Groot, just is like not doing their job. They're supposed to be manager. They're supposed to be helping other people work together. They're supposed to be doing PR stuff. They don't do any of it, allegedly. There's also becomes lazy and doesn't work on the UI stuff as is promised. A big project called FXDK, which is supposed to be innovative and revolutionize GTA 5 modding, never comes to fruition. It just never works. Essentially, we move past a lot of this because it becomes a lot of reiteration that Deltanic and Thers are lazy pieces of shit that don't do anything. You can see some DMs here and a chat conversation about NTA and Disk. Again, these conversations are incredibly private. Well, they're private DMs anyways, but these are just discussing like this is how I know it's Disk. Let's put it this way. Almost every screenshot of DMs is from Disk. I mean, either he wrote the damn thing or he told someone to write it. It's that clear. But anyway, NTA and Disk are talking about how these guys are kind of being lazy. And then we introduce some new characters. Thers and Deltanic still being bad. We're in 2022. In 2021, they hire LWSS, experienced engineer, known for security researches, again, indicating English is not their author's first language. I think this is Disk again. But anyway, I'm going to go back to the contents of the article. You introduce LWSS, who I believe to be the secondary author of this document and the anti-cheat developer. Gottfried doesn't really come up again. Forthar doesn't really come up again. Tabara, mine really comes up. And then we have Nemoya and Zernicki. These are both Deltanic and Thers friends. They are part of the group gang. That's kind of what you need to know. They are basically, this guy is going to be the support agent. This is going to be the person who interfaces with server owners and the community to tell them why or why not the servers are working. This person's also going to be a support agent and PR person. So these people are not coders. They just join to be like public relations and support agents that can respond to tickets and whatever, yada yada. Um, these two are coders. These two are coders and developers that got added. I can summarize these three's involvement by seems like a good developer, but not really involved in the drama. Moving past it. Here is Deltanic's alleged. This is their commitments to like GitHub or their what they. You can see here. It's the issues, merge requests, pushes, comments. For the layman, all you need to know is every dark gray square here indicates a day that nothing was done, allegedly. And they're saying nothing was done for the year of 2022 or whatever. Here you can see Disk and Tabara talking about how you can see Tabara and Disk talking about how the managers are getting paid more than the developers, and the current web guys are Remy's friends. Remy, remember, Disk, Groot, Remy, same person. Technidium, same person. They're bitching about the managers getting paid more than the coders. We move on. Here's an update on NTA's ability and their update. This is basically a graph of the same kind that indicates how much work NTA was doing towards the project. Every dark gray square like this one, every Sunday in October, they didn't do any work, or they didn't commit anything. They didn't publish any work, any contributions. Every bright green dot is a day they worked a shit ton. And you can see that they worked basically 360 days out of the year on FiveM. This is what you're going to start to understand. Basically, the undercurrents here is that NTA was a hard worker, talented coder, but a terrible people manager. Just terrible people. And it says that here as well in many, many different phrases, and says in many different ways it indicates how little NTA was good with people and how they were good at coding. But let me give you the long and the short. I'm going to summarize the next 20 minutes of reading with the simple: NTA is probably severely autistic. And I don't mean that in a pejorative of any kinds. I don't think it's expressly said, but they indicate that socialization issues are a problem and that they are a coding savant. And I think it's probably fine to just say they are a brilliant coder who has a obsession with FiveM, who is a significant, if you are not, like, this person is responsible for FiveM through and through, more than anybody else on Earth. And anyone who ever has watched GTRP or played GTRP owes them a debt of gratitude for that work. But let's just be open and honest about it. A very talented autistic coder who is, so deep in the weeds is not a good people manager. It's just, that's kind of how the world works, If to be a talented coder is and also be a talented people manager, it's rare. It's one in a million. And I can get into the whole. I have personal thoughts about should managers of coders really be paid more than coders. I got into a whole thought process on this, and that really is going to be like a separate tangent that is not pertinent to the actual manifesto here. But my take on it is I do think, I'm going to go into it real quick. I'm going to say I think it's kind of fucked up that essentially the workers who are coding the entire program are inherently in every fucking in every system, every capitalist system on Earth, the workers are getting paid less than the managers. It's fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Think about who is actually providing a product. It's the coders, 100% of the time. And let me be honest. Do coders need managers? Absolutely. If coders did not have managers, they would not be able to interface with each other. They would not be able to talk to their accountants. They would not be able to talk to HR. Like, there's a million things that require coders to talk to. Like, you need the outgoing extrovert type A to interface for the introvert type B. You need it. It needs to happen. To me, it's a lot like grease. The managers are the grease that keeps the gears from grinding metal on metal, right? But the sad fucking part is that the managers end up in charge because they have to be, and they abuse that. It's really fucked up, man. It's fucked up. Because why on earth is a coder like think about a coder at like Bungie? Let's use Destiny 2, right? A coder at Destiny, essentially the person that makes the fucking game. They make the product. Why is that person worth 100,000 a year, but a executive who's essentially a manager is worth 150 or 200k? It's fucked up. But anyway, that's a whole. I can't keep quiet about that. I think, and here's the honest God's honest truth, is I am an extrovert. I am a manager in this dynamic, right? And I could realize that it's fucked up for the managers to abuse this position to pay themselves more, but whatever. Moving on. That's a whole tangent that I can't keep quiet about, and I know that it's not really here or there. You're not here to talk about politics, but I maybe good leaders are more rare than good coders. True, that is true. However, how many good leaders have you had at your job? I'm gonna ask you, Rogue Gunslinger one. How many? You don't have to answer. I know it's a Twitch chat. How many jobs have you had? How many good managers have you had? Should all of your bad managers been paid more than you? I do agree that if there's a good leader who keeps up good morale, interfaces with different elements of the company, and keeps everybody working at a high pace, that person is worth more than all the parts combined. However, that person is 1 in a billion. It doesn't happen. The amount of bad managers that create busy work for themselves and others, that go to meetings all day and don't accomplish anything and just look busy and then go back to their office and look at Reddit or look at Twitter or TikTok, and then they pay themselves 50% more than the coder. Those people are the billion to that one. So anyway, that's my perspective on this. Just to clarify, managers, and just to be clear again, I do think that I would be a manager if I was in a workplace. I don't have a bachelor's degree, but my personality set is that of a manager. So I say this from a person who recognizes the scam, because I would be the one scamming. I would be the one benefiting from the scam. So anyway, let's move on. So the management starts to break down at this organization. NTA is the founder and the head of it, but Deltanic, aka Groot, aka Remy, is the manager, and they're getting paid more, and they're not really doing anything. It's a free-for-all. Basically, this is a quote that I find very accurate to the next 20 minutes of reading, is that it's a free-for-all. Those with the ability to self-organize could accomplish what they wanted and be as productive as they wanted. There were no consequences for doing nothing, which is unfair for those who put in their 8 hours every day. As one can imagine, many people began to slack off. A couple even took multiple jobs to stack more cash while milking FiveM. It was impossible to get fired at FiveM. That's basically what you're going to see. This covers 60% of the document, is that NTA was completely unable to fire these people who did no work and billed him for 8 hours a day. It is what it is. NTA admits they're not a good manager. It is what it is. Dude, Ultra, you don't have to outsource yourself. Like, as you'll see, you do zero work, you publish zero work, you get paid anyways. That's just how it works. That's how FiveM operated back then. It was a total golden goose. You could have 2 jobs, go to work your normal job, come home, bill NTA for 40 hours a week, and he'd pay you, and he'd never fire you. That's how it worked. But anyway, just to reiterate again, NTA was not an easy person to communicate with. They were extremely stressed about everything, and they had communication and socialization issues due to medical reasons, which NTA would disclose themselves if they had to. So NTA was open and honest that they had medical and communication issues, and that's what Deltanic was kind of there to mediate as a manager. And this manager just went MIA and just took the free money, essentially. That's what you need to know. We move into a section about these monthly pulse posts. Basically, this section is just here to establish that the people that were hired from the Groot gang that were allegedly supposed to do PR didn't do it, and the community noticed. This Nimona, Titanium, and Zenurki were supposed to do support work, and they started doing PR stuff. They just didn't do it after a month or two, and in the end, Tabara starts doing it. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Tabara, this guy starts doing the community post, who's a hardworking dev. This is a good guy, apparently. And then this person has done it all the way up into the Rockstar merger and then beyond, maybe. So that's what you need to know: is the PR people that got hired to do PR stuff didn't do it. Now we move into the actual meat and potatoes of the breakdown of FiveM. Deltanic, Thayers, Pneumonia, Zernicki, Kane, AK, and then this is their element name for FiveM: Technetium, Pneumonium, Titanium, Bengorium, Silicone, and Rutgonium, whatever. They formed their own little clique. These guys were all hired on the recommendation of Deltanic, and Deltanic is the ringleader. They essentially don't do anything. They don't work at all. They take the paycheck and they manipulate NTA by talking shit to him. Zernicki gets mouthy with NTA about, why are you doing PR? That's my job. Fuck off. An important thing to notate that comes in later, I feel was intentionally left out to deceive the audience on this, is that it's important to notate that Zernicki and NTA become involved at some point and are referred to as a thing. I'm not sure which era that it persists through because it doesn't give a date on it, but these two are a couple at some point, or a thing is what it's referred to as. No judgment on that, but it does paint a larger picture of why they're so casual with each other. At one point, the entire group, the Groot Gang, as you would know, they go to the Netherlands, and one of them, Titanium in this case, who is, let's refer to the guide up here, Titanium, who is also Pneumonia, sends a telegram message of a reservation in Dutch indicating they're in Netherlands, meeting up all together without NTA, their own boss, and having work meetings. It's obviously incredibly manipulative. To be forthright, this is incredibly disgusting behavior where NTA rightly freaks out and is like, what are you doing? Like, why are you in my country, but you're not involving me? Like, why don't you talk to me? And this is when it's kind of like established that they're, the Groot Gang's strategy was manipulate NTA by not responding to them for weeks, essentially. Whenever NTA does something they don't like or doesn't conform to their demands, Deltanic and the Groot Gang just ignores him for like weeks at ends. Anyways, additionally, NTA believed these people were their friends. So it's important to articulate as well that while NTA was their boss in the FiveM project, NTA also believed these people to be their friends. And, NTA being deeply, for medical reasons is the way they put it. I'll continue to refer to it like that, but we can read through the lines here and say that there's some autistic tendencies at play. But NTA wanted to break out of their isolation and socialize more, so this kind of thing was incredibly hurtful, rightfully so. It was a manipulation, essentially. What's important to note as well, I'm going to go back and say again, is that this group, to my knowledge, is largely Russian. So the fact that they were in the Netherlands is quite notable too. The fact they were near a restaurant that NTA could have gone to as well furthers the hurt here for someone who thought these people were a friend. Imagine you are the head of a project and you hire you hire your friends, and your friends bring in 4 more friends, and now you're paying for like 6 people on your roster, and they come, you're in America, they are in Canada, you see them post that they're at the bar down the street, and they didn't invite you. It's incredibly hurtful shit. It's incredibly hurtful. I don't blame this person for freaking out. Anyway, so we're moving further and further into the timeline. We're still about a fifth of the way through at the most. Basically, this is when the breakdowns that NTA was having was start to become a lot more frequent, and at the behest of this Groot Gang, as we're going to call them. We'll just call them Groot Gang from now on. If I see Groot, if I see Remy, if I see whatever, we're just going to call them Groot Gang, because that's just what they're referred to for the large part of this document. Deltanic, that's Groot, just so you know. And that's Groot Gang. essentially, Zernicki, one of the members of Group Gang, also apparently NTA's ex at this point, starts the narrative on the public forums that the Sea of X team, the main elements, are themselves. They start taking credit for a lot of the hard work that's being done. This is when we start to see a lot of takedown request, like the FiveM errors out because NTA is having a fit. This is a specific fit that the entire platform went down, and he blamed Disk, who is again, not a part of Group Gang, a Russian national, but not a part of Group Gang, who is an innocent party. But basically, this part emphasizes why I think this part right here, to me, indicates why I think Disk is the author more than anything. It shows extreme guilt that Disk had, and highlights the mental state that Disk realizes they were doing to NTA. So Disk here lets us in on an insight of a situation in which they manipulated NTA, and you might think it to be innocent, but it was still manipulation. And you can see right here, Disk was fully aware of how NTA would react, so it was still a form of manipulation. This, to me, feels like penance. It feels like penance. Disk feels an intense sense of remorse for allowing themselves to manipulate NTA, even if they thought it was for the betterment of the platform. And this also explains why Disk was, labeled as one of these things. NTA, being extremely stressed out, would confidently take down FiveM as a cry for help, so to speak, right? As a consumer of FiveM, we didn't know what it was, but now we do. Anyway, this is an attempt to provoke Disk to try to get a reaction. NTA shouldn't have done it, but this is how this starts to realize how harmful this shit is and doesn't do it again. Now, if you're an active user in FiveM back in the day, the mood takedowns became more frequent in 2022 and 2023. I can confirm they did. These mood takedowns, as they become referred to, start to happen a lot more frequently because of Group Gang, essentially. This is the crux of the rest of the article, is that Group Gang starts manipulating NTA pretty hardcore. And then NTA lashing out the only way they know how, begins to take down the platform with stuff like this. They take down the platform, and they respond on Twitter in such a way. Like, this is a good interaction, I think, that kind of encapsulates the issue. You have a random Twitter user who is like, hey guys, what the fuck is happening? Did you put this code in here? Or did someone else inject it? We need to know. And FiveM responds with, I did it. It was me. No one hacked it. It was me. And this person's like, why would you do that? It makes no sense. Why would you do that? And FiveM says, I don't know what you want from me. I did it. I'm being transparent. I admitted it. Which pretty much indicates it. And this is kind of a classic example, by the way, of a neurotypical person interacting with a autistic person, I find, is that this person is confused. Like, this person lays out, like, asks a question. The autistic person answers directly. The neurotypical person says, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would you do that? And to which the other person responds with, I'm telling you what happens. I don't know what you want from me. It's like, they don't like, this neurotypical person is trying to understand in logical terms, and it's an interesting interaction for me alone for that, and that like insight into a interaction from an autistic person's point of view, to be honest. And also, to be honest, I'm putting that label on them. They never say that openly, but I don't think it's a harmful label. And I'm sorry if they find it harmful, but I think it's helpful for other people to understand the perspective of what is happening here. I think referring to it vaguely as medical reasons does no one any good, but sorry. Anyway, so basically, these mood takedowns are increasing in frequency, and Group Gang is basically the behest. This author would have you believe that Group Gang is basically manipulating NTA, and that's what starts happening, and that's why it starts happening more and more and more. And they're right. From an outsider perspective, it's completely impossible to understand what's happening. It does make NCA look terrible. We thought the FiveM owner was completely schizo at the time, back in the day. And Deltanic paints a picture on the forums and elsewhere that NTA is just impulsive and a frustrated child. So you can see that the Groot Gang is manipulating NTA. NTA takes down the server or takes down the entire platform, and then Groot Gang is like, yeah, this guy's a fucking weirdo. And you can see how that would be believable, not knowing the inner workings. So we move on a little bit. During the situation, this is when they kind of level and they kind of give a explanation from Groot Gang, and Groot Gang basically this is a I think some levity from Disc trying to explain that Groot Gang isn't entirely evil, perhaps, and trying to give an explanation for their actions. And Groot Gang often would use burnout, unpredicted life events, etc., to not do their work and bill full hours, etc., etc. And basically, the author is going to indicate that it was more than just taking time off work, and they were billing for full hours even if they took time off work, so it's fraud. We move on. I mean, a lot of this is going to become a little bit repetitive because the author really wants to communicate some thoughts. So we're getting to the point where this is going to become very, very repetitive. And I'm trying to do chronological, and this doesn't do chronological, so I'm doing my best. So I've read this. I'm just trying to read through it to try to parse it. So anyway, at this point, how much are people getting paid? A pretty significant amount. You'll find out. The all I can tell you for the finances, Ray, is that when they do sell the acquisition, they sell for 20 million euros is the alleged amount, and that is apparently only 10 months of income from FiveM. So they think that was undervalued, but FiveM was making several dozens of million a year. Like it's an incredible amount of money at play here, allegedly. So just so you know, there is significant money at play. NTA is not poor by any means. In fact, NTA is a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy person to this day. Millionaire easily, tenfold over. At this time, too, they probably had several million. And these employees were getting paid good money, just to be clear. But nonetheless, it was fraud. And fraud against a millionaire is still fraud. It's still wrong, even if I don't love millionaires. Anyway, so this is when NTA is doing a lot of mood takedowns, and Deltanic, aka Groot Gang, is trying to give NTA to hand over access because of these mood takedowns. NTA rationally understands that this is not good for the product and that someone should be the owner of it. So NTA gives a draft of a contract somewhere in the middle of 2022, and that contract basically says, hey, you can have access to the important infrastructure things, but not the financials. And there's a contract to keep them honest about it, right? Deltanic doesn't sign it and ignores it because the speculation here is that they don't really care about. They don't want to they don't want a contract to regulate their access. They just want full access. So here's a discussion between Bubble, who is NTA, and Disc. Disc is expressing he doesn't want any more mood takedowns. NTA is agreeing and saying, hey, I tried to give a formal process so we could, reduce this. They didn't sign the fucking contract. Again, we see the further explanation here. But the long and the short of it is that in the end, NTA gave away full access to the project's infrastructure with no contract because they just felt bad. They were guilted. They were bullied into giving over access with no contract. And I do agree, Fred. Absolutely. I'm conflicted that I don't care about rich people problems. I think I have a policy internally that if you have a couple $1,000,000, then you have enough money to pay people to care. And I shouldn't care for your problems. But I mean the manipulation and stuff is disgusting regardless, I don't have a problem saying that you have millions of dollars, I don't feel that bad for you. But also, manipulation is, it's these are also millionaires we're talking about nowadays, right? So I don't have a problem condemning it either. Like, I don't necessarily feel extremely sorry for NTA because they have millions of dollars to pay people to feel sorry, but I can see wrong being done in the world and still condemn it, if that makes sense, right? It's different than like feeling, hopefully that makes some kind of sense. It's kind of my own complex morals. So whatever. This is a graph to show you that when NTA was taking down this is a graph of like the Group Gang takes over the infrastructure for the servers, right? And this is a uptime graph of 3-month period where red is down for like the entire day, green is like good, and orange is like bad, right? This is when Group Gang took over, and that is compared against a graph of when NTA was running it, and you can see that there are a few infrastructure issue days in the 3-month period, and then one day there was a mood takedown, and then 3 rough days for infrastructure. So it's just illustrating that Group Gang was inept at maintaining the infrastructure, and that the mood takedowns were almost better because at least it was just one day instead of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know what I'm saying, right? Pretty common to be more empathetic with when issues become humanized, you face a personalized face to them. I mean, I have a lot of empathy. I think I might be out of the norm here, but I have a lot of empathy. I don't work myself up for millionaires is what I'm saying. I can feel bad for someone, but also not be willing to like risk my emotional well-being for a millionaire. That's kind of the most nuanced way to say it for me. Anyway, while these so Group Gang takes over the infrastructure for FiveM at this period, and it goes down a lot more often than even the mood takedowns, and the Group Gang blames NTA all the way through it, blames NTA, even though NTA is no longer in control of the infrastructure. At some points, NTA uses a leftover token to get back into the back door and to do a mood takedown, and then that gives Group Gang all the more reason to blame NTA for all the legitimate server issues and all the illegitimate server issues. It's going to be a pattern here. After this point, NTA doesn't have any more tokens allegedly, and let's go into the Group Gang lore, right? So it's a group of friends abusing NTA's mental vulnerabilities. They're going to be called Group Gang from now on. Act like a gang allegedly. They weren't really well organized is what this person's trying to communicate, but they were a group ring led by a single person, and they didn't act as a monolith, but they do have similar intentions and they do act similarly. And there are like and to be clear, there are some of them that current day express remorse for how things went. Essentially what this section is trying to paint is that Group Gang was an isolated group within the FiveM structure. FiveM was around 20 developers, and only 5 or 6 of them ever had an issue with NTA. The other 16 or so had some communication issues and had some disagreements, but never had a real conflict with NTA. And so this is trying to paint a picture of like, if there's such an issue with NTA, why is it only the 4 to 6 people every time? So we move past this. We have a lot of historically blaming. Group Gang blames NTA at every corner. That's just what you need to know here. We move past. Now we go into the Rockstar acquisition. Now, important to note, Group Gang, Groot himself, is in charge of the infrastructure. And somewhere in this time, 2022, late 2022, Deltanic, aka Groot, aka Technidium, aka Remy, starts conversations with a executive at Rockstar called Ethan. And we'll go into that more, Ethan Hirsch, who seems tentatively interested in buying FiveM or acquiring FiveM, or perhaps becoming partners in FiveM. And this part is illustrating that there's a legitimate acquisition that these guys were kind of like, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. there was some hesitancy. NTA also had a court restriction to not work on anything Take-Two related. So this is getting kind of dicey for NTA. NTA doesn't want to do this because of the potential legal fallout, right? Messaging someone. Anyway, so as this acquisition becomes more and more likely, NTA gets kind of on edge because there's a court restriction here, and Deltanic basically betrays the entire group by leaking the personal information of every developer to Rockstar, and Disc doesn't like that, and a lot of the other developers don't like that because working on FiveM is inherently a not just a legal gray area, but almost a legal red area. Your founder's already been legally prohibited. Leaking your confidential personal info to Rockstar themselves would potentially give them the bullets for the gun that would shoot you for legal troubles. Anyway, we move on. It's no good. Deltanic, kind of a piece of shit. Moving on, Deltanic also leaks the entire financial data to get a sweetheart deal at Rockstar. And I think I have to say, this is probably one of the most offensive parts of this as just like a business situation. If this is true, which this is all allegedly, just to be clear, leaking your financial data to the potential partner or acquisition acquiring company is just bad business. It's purely bad business. I'm not a merger guy. I've not really worked in business. And I'm sure that at some point when the deal becomes super secure and talks are becoming very very serious, you would be required to provide this kind of information. But leaking it is just stupid. Then Rockstar knows how much money you make and how little they have to offer you. It's just bad business. So that's why they think that Deltanic became a director at Rockstar, is because of this kind of behavior. Now, we're going to move past a little bit more and skip a little bit more just to say that while this is going on, NTA kind of starts to push back and doesn't want to do this anymore and starts to kind of freak out that like this is going to be a bad deal, and kind of starts to resist, right? During this period, Deltanic and the Groot Gang really start to manipulate them hard. They start ignoring him for weeks on end. These are people that NTA thinks are his friend, by the way, too. But there's a lot of manipulation at play here. I'm really underselling the manipulation part of this. I've highlighted some key parts, but for the person at home who wants to know what happened here, a lot of alleged manipulation, where NTA thought they were friends with this group, and this group would just ignore him for weeks on ends, or just treat him like shit and talk to the public like NTA is a moron who is a child, etc., etc. During this acquisition period, this early talks, apparently there was a partnership. It was a potential partnership where CFX, the CFX team, which is the owners of like the current developers of FiveM, would have been partners with Rockstar, not acquired by Rockstar. This is apparently a much preferable deal for NTA, and I would assume most people. Hirsch, the Rockstar employee they were interfacing with and is now their boss, basically said it was possible, but refused by Groot Gang. Is it true? Is it not? I don't know. But I can see why this would be advantageous for the Groot Gang and not advantageous for NTA. NTA is someone who really is passionate about this project, worked on it for free for years, and now is making money off it, but I think would have worked on it for free for years and years to come. Like they want to create a vision still. And not having that is probably pretty tough for NTA to cope with. They were the complete and sole visionary and founder, and now they don't even have a say. So partnership would have been preferable. It is easy to say for NTA. But I can see why Groot Gang wanted to become acquired, not a partner. And this is pure speculation on my part, but it's because Groot Gang is majority, if not completely, Russian in origin, Russian nationals. And my understanding is that working for Rockstar, which I believe to be where, yeah, Rockstar is. I thought it was a completely American company, but Rockstar is a completely like Rockstar is a completely American company. So it makes sense to me why these Russians um, would want to become bought out by Rockstar versus a partnership, because a partnership would leave them potentially as contractors. Acquisition would become full employees, and they would at least get work visas to escape Russia and any potential mobilization. I know that this is not a fun topic to talk about when we're discussing FiveM drama, but it's kind of understandable. They want to get out of Russia. I don't believe Group Gang to be truly evil. They're manipulators and they're bad people, but I do understand the motivation here. My speculation, anyway, is to get out of Russia and secure their place in the West. And working at Rockstar is, like you said, ultra. It's a payday and a cushy job, but it's also security. Um, isn't it talked about later that everyone stayed on remote work and was just shipped hardware from Rockstar, though? Yes, but what's important to note is that Rockstar has a remote work doesn't necessarily just mean stay where you are. Rockstar, it's kind of murky here, Kenny. It seems like you've read some of this. And my understanding is that Rockstar locations. So Rockstar has different locations around the world. They have, let's see, it's like Rockstar hiring. So Rockstar has like many different locations. And anyway, long and the short of this is, to me, is that they probably got to move to at least Western Europe and were given a work visa from Rockstar to stay there in Western Europe. Even if they're remote and only remote with just hardware from Rockstar, I think what happened here basically was that NTA was giving them a work visa. It's mentioned later here that NTA actually gives one of their boyfriends a fake job with real income to secure their exit from Russia. And to me, there is some underlying currents that while NTA was giving them work visas to work at NTA's company FiveM, that wasn't a secure, rock solid deal that could keep them out of Russia forever. But Rockstar doing the same thing is much more secure. And additionally, you have to admit, working for Rockstar as a career is much more. It's much more of a career move than anything else in this. Like, if you say I work for FiveM, go ahead and explain what FiveM is to Microsoft Games. Maybe some of them get it, maybe some of them don't. The coders might get it. The HR people that hire you probably won't. If you say I worked at Rockstar Games, you're in. Like, I mean, can you imagine a developing studio that wouldn't take I worked for Rockstar as a director, as a developer, as a programmer, as like a free golden ticket to, you know what I'm saying? It's a leaping off point. Basically, that's conjecture, but that's where I'm at with this section. So Groot Gang basically uses their insider knowledge of a potential deal to start establishing themselves as a much harder worker than they actually are. People that hadn't worked in months, people that have been doing one task a month, now suddenly started asking for salary increases, which NTA approved, to make them seem like they were higher up in the company than they were, and that when they were acquired by Rockstar, they would be more significant than they actually were. This part, it's hard to say if this is true or not. Obviously, I think Disc wrote this, and I think there's some salt from Disc that Disc didn't get a good of a job as Groot Gang did at Rockstar, because Disc ends up as a contractor for Rockstar as a low junior programmer, and a lot of these Groot Gang guys end up as direct employees. So, I think this is true, but it does reek of jealousy. Maybe rightful jealousy, though. Sometimes jealousy is rightful. Disc sounds like a much harder worker than these guys, but we only have Disc side of things, so I don't know if it's true or not. It does sound like these guys were bums, though. So anyway, they bump up their CVs, they get pay raises, so that when Rockstar comes looking into the books, uh, Groot will get better jobs at Rockstar. And I absolutely agree, Ray. I think that's right where I'm at with it. I don't know that he's lying, and there's a lot of regret and jealousy, but I think it's mostly true. Um. Anyway, so we're gonna move past this a little bit. Um. At this point, NTA starts trying to back out of the merger, back out of the acquisition, and Deltanic and Groot Gang becomes very manipulative and begging him, freaking out, saying if they don't deal it, they're going to sue them. Groot Gang tries to sue uh, NTA for 6 million euros, which is a third the proposed deal. So do the math, proposed deal is at 18 million euros or something. It ends up being 20, I think. But anyway, because of all the manipulation and tactics, apparently there was an anti-stall mechanism and it kind of goes through. NTA essentially stalls too long due to the manipulation and boom, it goes through. There's a lot of, and then allegedly behind the scenes, Deltanic and Groot Gang were making deals with CFX partners, Tebex and Zap Hosting, that they started adding clauses into their current contracts that the contracts were for a lot of money, and the contracts added a clause that said if they were acquired by Rockstar, they would have to pay out the contract in full, no matter how long. Obviously, this is implied to be insider knowledge that Tebex or Zap Hosting could not have known about the situation, and therefore they would have no reason to add this clause. So it's implied, or it's directly said, that Deltanic probably gave them a notice. Hey, put this clause in there. You'll get a bunch of free money. And then the conjecture here is that Deltanic gets a major kickback because of that. Deltanic brags about getting a Tesla. Here it is. Groot gets a kickback from the partner companies. One honest team member said the story. Tell a story where Groot bragged about getting a free Tesla. So it's implied. It's directly said. Groot manipulated NTA, used insider knowledge to defraud NTA. Here it is again. Basically, we move on. Ethan Hirsch management starts getting slandered, but here comes a team, right? So Mr. Hirsch, this guy becomes another villain, and I'm gonna say I don't actually view Ethan Hirsch as a villain, if I'm honest. Ethan Hirsch, for those that have just joins or are looking to get caught up, is the Rockstar executive that kind of starts to manage the acquisition. At first, he's director of strategy, and then becomes a senior director, creator platform. Creator platform is going to be the umbrella they refer to FiveM as, and Rome. That'll come into play too. Basically, my understanding of this situation is that Ethan Hirsch was developing Rome with a group of other modders that turned corporate from GTA multiplayer, a mod that was killed off in 2015 and that Rockstar acquired the key developers from. And that this entire time that FiveM had been flourishing, Ethan Hirsch was developing a group of modders that are now corporate employees to develop a competitor and eventually the replacement for FiveM. And that was called Rome, ROME, which is an acronym for Rockstar Online Modding Engine. It's, to me, it seems like what happened with Ethan Hirsch had this team going, right? And they were going to, at some point, unleash this Rome system to probably take over from FiveM in GTA 6. That's my understanding, is that I think this seems like a GTA 6 thing, this Rome thing that Ethan Hirsch was running. But it seems like what happened is while they were, in the early concepts of this thing, is you have to keep in mind, 10 years, yeah, I mean, you have to keep in mind, Rockstar moves slowly. Like, look at GTA 6. They move slowly. Rockstar moves very slowly on their stuff, right? They have plenty of runway, and I don't think it's a bad thing. But just to try to make my point here before I get distracted again, I think they were developing Rome with Ethan Hirsch's team, and then Groot Gang tries to sell out FiveM out of nowhere. And Ethan Hirsch, being a adept executive, is like, what? Okay, like, let's hear this out, right? he hears them out and sees what's going on and is like, yeah, this is a no-lose situation. We gain control of FiveM. We pay $20 million or 20 million euros, but just use dollars because it's basically the same amount of money. We pay $20 million for a product that makes 40 million a year. If we don't fuck this up for a year, we make double our money back in at least 1 year. You know what I'm saying? Rockstar loses nothing in this acquisition. They make more money than they bought it out for in 20 months. If they make it over a year, they make their money back, So anyway, I view Ethan Hirsch as kind of an unwitting executive who didn't really know how insanely manipulative this whole group was. So Ethan Hirsch starts telling, he starts these conversations with these guys, kind of feel out what's going on with FiveM. And Corporal Asso guy. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty accurate, MT, is that he's kind of a corpo, type that you think is an asshole. But in reality, he's just caught kind of unaware with how incredibly complex this web is. And so they acquire FiveM. He's now the big boss of FiveM. A lot of the FiveM team didn't like this because they kind of like their they kind of like their job as a FiveM developer is very freelance, very free form. Now it's going to be an official, a much more regulated type of deal. He starts interviewing people over Discord to kind of get a feel for them, just asking them what's going on and stuff, kind of friendly stuff, very typical corporate stuff. Anyway, so here's the supposedly 20 million for FiveM, by the way. Group Gang starts trying to manipulate NTA for bonuses, essentially. Groot asks for 30% of the sale. He demands it. Says it was his dream to get that kind of money. Me too, brother. It's also my dream to get 30% of 20 million. What a crazy dream we both have. So unique. Anyway, they were unsuccessful getting the bonuses, but they essentially manipulate him and ignore NTA to the point where NTA feels he has to buy his friends back and gives them a sum of money, not exactly 30%, but gives them a sum of money to buy his friends back. The first few weeks of working at Rockstar, Group Gang is slandering NTA. We can move past a lot of this. It's workplace drama. So at this point, they start working for Rockstar. This is going to be like, I don't know what the time frame here is. But just to be clear, Group Gang starts working at Rockstar, and it doesn't really say this, but initially, as far as seniority, NTA is like the second level below Ethan Hirsch. But as things go on, Groot himself becomes the second man to Ethan Hirsch, equal with NTA, and NTA is a contractor, whereas Groot and the others are employees. So some leverage happens. Groot, they start throwing NTA under the bus. They start using NTA's poor social abilities to stress NTA out and reporting him to HR and stuff. And eventually NTA gets a talking to from HR and like a 3-week suspension from work. So here's the admission that NTA and Zernicki had been a thing. NTA wasn't over it, kind of had an obsession with Zin. Zin used some of those old DMs to get him in trouble. Basically, Zin later regrets this, is said, but there's some elements, there's some whiffs of that. Sorry, that was my music. Anyway, there's some hints that NTA is not taking the separation well, and NTA is a bit of a hung up on Zin. So we're moving past this a little bit further. I know we're an hour and a half in. We're kind of getting to the end. Trust. A lot of this, trust, we are getting near the end. I know it doesn't seem like it. Here you have some conversation about how NTA is talking with Steve or Winfan or whatever. This is just NTA talking about how Group Gang is apparently manipulating Ethan Hirsch and HR to get rid of NTA. NTA, while being suspended, tries to buy the friends back, sends Technidium, aka Groot, aka Remy, aka whatever the D guy's name, 2 million, just under. Zernicki gets 1 million, and Neonium 150k euros. He ends up sending the money over. It doesn't work, and they continue to campaign for NTA's firing even after getting the bonuses. Groot asks for more and more money, wants 6 million, not 2 million or not 1 million. NTA replied to Groot because basically Groot's angle is I set up the deal, I want more money, which whatever. There's maybe some validity to that, maybe there isn't. The reality of it is that Groot did set up the deal and do the deal behind NTA's back. Does that entitle him to more money? No, because it seems like NTA didn't even want the fucking deal. But regardless, NTA starts asking for the money back, saying it was an accident. Groot involves his lawyer, initiates legal proceedings to keep the money. It goes back and forth. Groot deletes his entire Telegram Discord history, so NTA couldn't use it in court, but eventually folded anyway to get back the money. The original team speculates. The original team, aside from Groot Gang, speculates that Groot folded because he had been embezzling from FiveM all along, and that if this went to a court proceedings, Groot's bank account containing the bonuses, etc., would have been revealed. So this is speculation. I think it could be true, but just so you're aware, that's why Groot did give the money back for the narrative part of it. Anyway, so Ethan's first priority, now in charge of FiveM, was to get rid of the flat structure at FiveM and move everyone to a corporate hierarchy. What ends up happening is that Groot gets placed as Ethan's right-hand man as assistant director. Thayers, Neonium, gets placed as the lead of engineering department, but is not very proficient in coding and management skills, and ends up getting renamed to senior or software engineering manager because they're incompetent, apparently. And apparently this is the only Rockstar employee to have this title. That's all conjecture. We don't really know if that's the only title or whatever. We'll take them at their word. Pneumonia, Titanium was made a senior manager of support and PR. Essentially the cushiest job possible, by the way. This is a good job. Support and PR, easy job, dude. Respond to emails all day. Zernicki becomes PR, public relations, and Kane, a lead of a one-person team of infrastructure department. Now, nobody else got cool roles. Everyone else was a junior, an associate. The anti-cheat lead, who's also the only person at CFX as an internal team, was offered $55,000 a year. So basically, Groot Gang gets a bunch of good jobs for a lot of money. Everyone else gets kind of like middling jobs for average money. Low money in the industry, I'd say. 55K is a little low. Anyway, NTA, the founder of the whole project, was hired as a contractor. I've already covered this part. So a lot of people get hired as contractors too. Moving past that, NTA was basically still being shit on and belittled, and they were using their little group to bully him and paint him as a villain to HR. Moving to a little bit more of the interesting talk. This is going to be a little bit more interesting for people interested in FiveM in general, because this is actually the future of FiveM. A lot of this so far has been the history of FiveM, but this is probably the future of FiveM here. I can't pronounce bars. I'm American. I don't know what this means. We'll call them bars. Bars is a observer type figure along with Onion that are basically observing the new FiveM.Team under Rockstar, essentially like to see if they're adjusting well. Thanks for the tier 1, by the way, Jocko. Appreciate it, dude. The resub, dude. So anyway, Onion is like another person who had sold their business to Take-Two and is not responsible and actually tried to help. So they don't come up again. Onion, forget about them. We have bars here. Thanks for the 2 subs, Olsen. Thank you, man. I didn't read it for nothing. Holy shit. Thanks for giving a sub to bars, dude. Anyway, so bars is essentially the the project lead from GTA multiplayer. If you've been here the entire time, you're gonna remember that. That is a callback from way back in the day. Bars is the GTA multiplayer was a rival mod to FiveM in the very early days that apparently was acquired by Rockstar. Essentially, it is said here that Bars and his GTA multiplayer team are a separate team that is not introduced to the FiveM team, and they are working on Rome or some part of Rome. They are the leaders at the creator platform team. Essentially, they interact somewhat, but not really. But Rome, for the short answer, is the Rockstar Online modding engine. That is probably the successor to FiveM. The timeline is unclear. I'll go into that later when we get to the end of this. Basically, this guy Bars was apparently the same level as NTA, which is important to note because Bars is implied to be high up. So I think they're not saying it here, but NTA actually is kind of high up in the architecture, but they're just a contractor is all. And that seems to be a major disagreement. But anyway, Bars is someone who is basically relaying technical requests to Rockstar. Bars and his GTA multiplayer team working on Rome have access to the GTA 5 source files, which the FiveM team was not allowed to have access to. Bars also was given information from the FiveM team about some sensitive exploits that are still possible in GTA Online, but the FiveM team had become aware of and patched on their side. So Bars is kind of painted as like incompetent as well. I don't know how true that is. It's kind of all conjecture. It seems like a little bit of jealousy that these guys got hired before FiveM did. Onion was a good guy and would ask why people weren't doing their jobs. Eventually, about 2 years ago, Onion moved on with another program at Rockstar, probably an executive. So we move on. After the NTA suspension of 3 weeks, he comes back, starts working again, complaining to Ethan Hirsch that he's getting roadblocked because Groot Gang is now high up in Rockstar, well, at least high up on this specific team in Rockstar. Ethan says Rockstar can have an environment where everyone feels uncomfortable, yet NTA is allowed to feel uncomfortable because Groot Gang keeps vilifying him. And then NTA, essentially, after a lot more goes down, essentially Zin complains that NTA is harassing via Discord DMs. Rockstar corporate policy, suspends NTA 3 months. Zin expresses some remorse in these DMs with Disc, but claims that this is just what you're supposed to do in a corporate architecture. You make your own judgment call on that. I'm not really interested in that minute detail. It does seem like manipulation, but anyway. NTA basically is sent home for 3 months, no work, suspended. During this period, though, NTA is still trying to help somehow. NTA is deeply passionate about this project and it's their fixation. So NTA kind of keeps helping on the outside, but has an NDA and can't talk about it. But because they have an NDA, they're still allowed to talk to the other members of the development team that aren't Groot Gang. And basically, the OG chat is initiated as a concept. This is a group of the original developers that are not Groot Gang, essentially. They trauma bond in this group. It becomes a lively place more than the official Rockstar Slack. Essentially, Ethan Hirsch becomes aware of this at some point and was not happy and accused them of starting an army. So what I'm starting to gather here is that Ethan Hirsch, let's go to the top here, if you don't mind. Ethan Hirsch, you have to keep in mind, is this guy, the normal executive guy who, unbeknownst to him, hired a group of developers, modders. And I think this is kind of a case study on why modders don't get a job at official institutions very often, is because they're kind of poorly socialized and they don't really get along with each other, and there's a lot of internal drama. Occasionally it works out, but for the most part, that's why a lot of places require a college degree, is because the college degree is not actually that important to learning your job, but a college degree shows that you could at least show up somewhere for 5 or 6, 4 or 5 days a week and perform some coursework and get along with your teachers and classmates. So, as much as I don't think college degrees are good and we need to move away from them, I do kind of understand where we're at with this situation. That's why college degrees are important in corporate America, is because it just shows you get along with others. So Ethan Hirsch, this unknowing executive, secures a major deal for Rockstar. He is now in charge of essentially 2 groups of people, right? He has the Groot Gang, who he has hired as the assistant director, lead developer, lead support manager, PR, and back-end maintenance guy. And then there's also this other group of the quote-unquote OGs, the founder of FiveM, who's a contractor, the disc guy, who's Red M and FiveM, contractor, LWSS, who's an associate developer, non-contractor, Gottfried, who's a contractor, Orthar, who is a senior developer, and TX admin developer Devara. So he's got 2 groups under him, right? And I think from Ethan Hirsch's perspective, I kind of get it. He doesn't know who's right and who's wrong, and he doesn't know all the ins and outs of this really, really fucking complex web of interpersonal relationships that honestly, to be completely candid, you've got this group of, you hired this group of people, and you told your bosses, hey, look, I'm getting a sweet deal. Let me pay 20 million to acquire them, and then let me get the salaries for these guys. It's going to be a great deal. And so he really can't afford to get rid of these people after he just talked about to his boss. So he's got to try to settle these disputes between them, right? And I think the reality of it is that Ethan thinks, okay, these 5 people are saying this guy's a problem, and these 4 people are saying these 5 are a problem. It's just a nightmare for the executive here. He doesn't know what to do. And so it's mismanaged for sure. And unfortunately, NTA gets it's a very short end of the stick, because NTA is, as we've established, very poorly socialized, and that leads to NTA not being able to navigate social situations very well due to the probably apparent autism. And basically, NTA gets kind of forced out of Rockstar. That's what's going to happen here. And NTA gets fired, essentially. When that happens, a lot of these other guys that are associated with NTA still kind of don't like that. They know NTA is hard to work with. They've worked with NTA a lot, but they also know NTA is is 90% of the project, and these guys are kind of bums. So slowly, one by one, the rest of these guys will quit, and it becomes a really this kind of, like I said, this is a long document, but like I said, we're near the ends. Yeah, this is the end basically. What ends up happening is through this next period, we look into how this person who's writing this document, whether it's a collective of community members of FiveM, whether it's Disc himself, whether it's LWSS, whatever, we start to watch how they start to say, look, FiveM's shit now. Rockstar's managing it poorly, et cetera, right? These guys have all quit since, all the OGs, and Groot Gang is the only people still left at Rockstar. There's some major drama pieces I can go into. But basically, NTA gets fired. The rest of the team quits slowly. There is a documentation about how they believe that Rockstar and the employees at Rockstar, the Groot Gang guys, are unfairly enforcing terms of service. This is when NoPixel comes up, if you're curious. This is basically how NoPixel gets involved. Is that this author, who I think is Disc, starts to bring up that server owners are unhappy with unfair enforcement of TOS and PLA. PLA is just a term for TOS now that Rockstar owns it. Server owners like Next are boycotting, throwing a fit. It's a lot of drama. RSM throws a fit and gives up on their server. NoPixel is accused of allegedly debadging cars. So the way that it works, whenever Rockstar took over, is they said no more third-party assets. No more brands whatsoever. Even if you have permission from the brands, no more brands. And I kind of completely get that, because while you have permission from the owner of the brands, there may be someone somewhere with power of attorney. Imagine that you're the owner of a brand. Like, let's say you're the owner of like a small boutique clothing brands, but let's say you've also licensed that brand somewhere else. There is someone who might have power of attorney to sue on your behalf. Even though you're okay with it, they would still sue, right? And the difference between suing FiveM as an independent project and suing Rockstar is massive. Rockstar is a much more lucrative target than a bunch of developers out on their own, right? So Rockstar doesn't want to have any of this shit anymore. No more brands. People complain, but no more brands is a very reasonable thing. Basically, NoPixel now is being accused of, instead of just making new lore-friendly cars, there are DMs from Zin that says that these cars are not just remade cars. This is not the Comet 6. This is actually a Cayman GTA 4, which is a real car, a real Porsche, and it's just debadged. So this is where NoPixel kind of gets the real drama with NoPixel, is that NoPixel is treated as Ethan Hirsch's pet. Like, this is portrayed that Ethan Hirsch has close cooperation with NoPixel and therefore is allowing stuff that would not be allowed for other servers. Other servers are upset about this. Apparently NoPixel is using debadged cars. I don't even know if that's true. There's allegedly evidence here. It is what it is. I'm not an expert. It does seem like this is a debadged Porsche Cayman passed off as a Comet 6. I don't know. I thought the cars looked unique to me and looked like GTA lore to me, but I don't know. NoPixel, this is the real important part if you're just paying attention for NoPixel shit, is that allegedly NoPixel is secretly working together with Ethan Hirsch, the executive and the director of Rome, with early access to move their server first over. Now, this can be interpreted a number of different ways. I thought a massive thing. See, I know what you're talking about, Skunk, and just to confront that, I know that there was a debadging process that went on as soon as Rockstar bought FiveM, and my interpretation was debadging was allowed, but it was allowed, but it was kind of a stopgap until they replaced them with new cars, right? So my understanding was at the end of mid 3.0 to the end of 3.0, they debadged all the cars to comply with Rockstar TOS immediately, but understood that debadging wasn't acceptable and they needed to make new cars. So at the beginning of 4.0, I thought it was a completely new fleet of cars that were not just debadged, they were completely different. And that's kind of where I left it. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. I don't know. I thought debadging was kind of a stopgap that was no longer being done. Allegedly, it is still being done as recently as 2024 March, so last year, which is well into 4.0. Regardless, this so-called FiveM killer, something Hirsch has been cooking for years. Ethan doesn't care about any server owner on FiveM. He just expects the community to follow NoPixel. So I think this is, I'm going to go into a little bit of conjecture and a little bit of speculation. I think you can interpret this in a few different ways. One is that you can interpret this as a doomsday scenario, that NoPixel is going to be the only server on FiveM 2 or Rome when it launches, and that NoPixel will inherently be the only server on it for months because NoPixel had such a big head start, and that we're all going to NoPixel 5.0. Personally, I don't care. I have no server loyalty. No server has ever paid me money. No server has ever brought me on their staff. I don't get paid to say anything about any server, so I'll be fair and upfront. I've enjoyed Onyx in the past, no longer. I enjoy Purple right now, but I would be silly to maintain a loyalty to a server that has done nothing to me, for me, right? Competitive, I think the having competition in the market is good, so I'll put that out there. But inherently, this does not affect me as deeply as anything else. I played NoPixel for 7 years, man. NoPixel taking over is not going to be the end of the world for me. Although I do enjoy Purple quite a lot. I hope Purple is able to find an edge. But let's interpret this a little bit more fairly, right? is NoPixel actually going to be the only server on Rome launch? I don't think so. I'm not an expert, but I don't think so. My actual interpretation of this section is that NoPixel is a trusted group of developers who have legitimate contracts and NDAs. So NoPixel is being given the trust to beta test this Rome engine project because NoPixel actually has a corporate structure. You may not like NoPixel, you may not love NoPixel. I know I don't. I know I have my problems with NoPixel. But at the end of the day, I completely get it. NoPixel does have a corporate structure. They do issue paychecks to the developers. They do have NDAs. So if Ethan Hirsch and Rockstar was going to try to beta test Rome with FiveM server owners, it would be NoPixel. Because to my knowledge, Onyx does not have NDAs. Onyx does not have any formal payment structure for developers. Same thing with Purple, to my knowledge. I think at the end of the day, all three servers, many servers could have corporate structures and payments. But the problem is that I think they don't want 1 million developers on this Rome thing. They just want a small group of developers that could test it out. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what the truth is. But I know for a fact that NoPixel can be very tight-lipped about their development. And I think for Ethan Hirsch and Rockstar, that is very sorry, let me put it this way. Astronaut, I believe you. You're a developer, to my knowledge, and I believe you have NDAs. I don't mean to insinuate that Onyx doesn't have any kind of like corporate structure, but more to the point that NoPixel 100% does, and that I think what's happening is basically a I don't know how to paint this, but NoPixel's corporate, for lack of a better term. That's basically what it's coming down to. Is Ethan Hirsch? You could put H. Ethan Hirsch is like, what do I want to expand Rome, so we'll put Rome under here. So we'll do excuse my drawing. We have Rome, whatever, man. It's terrible, but R-O-M-E. You have Ethan Hirsch and Rome, right? This is two separate things, but he's like, how do I invite people to this group, right? And he's like, okay, I have, Onyx. Maybe he knows about Onyx, maybe he doesn't. You have NoPixel, you have D10 or something. You have maybe Purple. I don't know if he even knows about Purple. And many other servers, right? Like, dozens of hundreds of other servers, right? Prodigy, sure. Prod. And he's like, okay, listen, I can't have 1 million people having access to this. I can only have a small group. And what's the most important thing with this small group is that they are completely airtight about their NDA and that they do not leak source code from GTA 5. And here's the thing. He may think, you know what? It's possible Onyx is good for this. But he doesn't have a formal working relationship with them. It's possible D10 is good, but he doesn't have a formal working relationship with them. He has a formal working relationship with NoPixel because of the brands and the contract creation, or the content creation that has gone on there. So in the end, just like Astronaut said, it's corporate. NoPixel's corporate. These other servers are not as corporate. NoPixel become the beta tester, the first invite, because Ethan Hirsch and Rockstar are relatively assured that NoPixel will not leak anything and will maintain their NDAs. Pick one with the most to lose. Exactly. Lowman Scott, I think it has a pretty good angle on that. Now, do I think this is a doomsday scenario for GTA modding, FiveM, etc.? No. I think what the most likely situation is that NoPixel is basically getting paid to beta test Rome, and their payment is advanced access, a head start. But I think what's going to happen in the next year is that Rome beta testing or Rome testing or Rome access will be given out to more and more groups as time goes on. It's possible Other servers are now getting access to Rome. We just don't know about it. You have to think about it like this too. We only know NoPixel has access to Rome because of this document, and this document is by maybe two Rockstar employees who were themselves admittedly low-level contractors in FiveM. So my opinion is that could this be a total doomsday where NoPixel is the only server allowed and has a 2-year head start? Yes, that could happen. I can't rule it out. I don't have the access. I cannot rule that out. But as a reasonable person, do I think that NoPixel is going to be the only group with advanced access? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's completely possible there are other groups with access to Rome right now. It's completely possible other groups have had access that this employee who wrote this was not aware of. It's also completely possible that many groups will get access to Rome as time goes on. It's also completely possible that NoPixel is pioneering the way to make it so you can transition your server seamlessly from FiveM to Rome. It's completely possible that NoPixel is doing a community service for FiveM, and NoPixel is making it so it's easy to transfer your tools and your assets to Rome when it comes out. And I agree, Astronaut is a great resource here. He's an active developer for Onyx. It'd be crazy if one team got access for this big and only got access to it. I completely agree. GTA 6 is massive. I don't think it's the only access. And like you said, empty, it's not confirmed. This is just a leak that it apparently was true. And just to confront something else, I want to say, you know what I find, Astronaut? I'm not gonna pretend like I've had corporate tech jobs. I have had corporate jobs. I worked at Walmart headquarters as a IT briefly, and so and my friends are all like in real life. A lot of my friends work for Walmart as coders and such. So I have some small, tiny insight into how corporate structures work, and I just want to say I think you're right. Like, there's a lot of nuance here that is lost, and that taking this as gospel and the only version of the truth is probably it's probably just it's naive is what it is. But anyway, I do want to confront this though, my copium and why the Onyx update is taking so long. I don't think that's the case. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wish, Chipman, I really do, but I don't think that's why Onyx update's taking so long. I mean, maybe it is, but it seems really short-sighted to completely kill off your server for something that isn't going to be released even within. I highly doubt Rome is released to a public audience in the year 2025. I think we're quite a bit off from Rome. I do think Rome is built to replace FiveM before GTA 6, but keep in mind that what is GTA 6? I think GTA 6 is like slated for I mean, it's slated for like late 2025 or something, right? And it's likely that this is going to get released. It's likely that it's going to get delayed. I mean, a game this big always does. And then on top of that, the PC release is going to be 2026 minimum, right? So I think there's a chance that Rome comes out late 2025. But I think it's more likely that Rome is not a serious candidate to contend against FiveM until 2026 at minimum. So yeah, I think just to be reasonable, just to stop a little bit of spiraling, that's where I'm at with this whole NoPixel is the only server on Rome or whatever. It's definitely one employee's perspective, but it's not the absolute truth in my mind. It is confirming Rome though, which is interesting. Also, I want to thank you guys for watching. I know that we've been going for a while. We've been talking about this. You know, I have 320 viewers, which is huge, and thanks for putting up with this bullshit. I actually had fun reading this and talking about it. It's kind of interesting too. I think FiveM has been a big part of my life as a consumer So being able to read through this was kind of interesting, just as like a personal level. But being able to dissect it with the chat as well is very interesting to me. I like doing it. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna finish the last bit of this while it matters though. There's a lot of salt from server owners here about FiveM. Sorry, a lot of salt from server owners on FiveM about NoPixel allegedly debadging cars. I think this is Milton Pike, uh, who's like on some server in Spanish, who's like upset about it. Yeah, Astronaut, you probably weren't here when I said this, but I think this entire manifesto is a case study on why big tech doesn't hire modders. Like, not entirely. I know modders do get hired. I mean, in this case, they did. And there's obviously modders that do get hired that are perfect model employees. And there are obviously tech employees that mod in their off time that are model employees. But for the vast majority of like tech stuff, this is why game companies are afraid of hiring modders, is because of this. Like this blow up. Basically, a executive hire, takes a deal with FiveM and hires a bunch of people, and there's a super complex social dynamic, and there's a very autistic person at the helm who lacks the social facilities to. It's just it's a web. It's a total web, and I'm not going to say right or wrong, but yeah, I'm thinking Ethan Hirsch is probably really regretting this right about now, because what is he going to do? Fire the 5 people he said were the hot shots? He can't do that. He'll look like shit to his executive boss. It's you know what? I like that, dude. It's like asking pirates to join the Navy. A few of them are going to be really good, but the vast majority are fucking pirates for a reason, dude. Yes, fire them. I agree. Yes, fire them. But the problem you have to consider the reward structures at play here, right? Ethan Hirsch is he's an executive. Think about it from the perspective of Ethan Hirsch. He's this executive guy who works at Rockstar and probably went out of his way to pitch this, deal that hey, we need to buy FiveM for $20 million, and then we need to hire 20 employees, right? That probably took a lot of convincing of his bosses, right? If Ethan goes back to his bosses, his executive bosses, that we're all responsible to a boss at the end of the day, and says, "Hey, great news! We just fired my entire team because they couldn't get along with each other that I just spent $20 million acquiring." He's gonna look like a clown. Even if it's the right thing to do, he's gonna look like a clown. So what I guarantee you Ethan's gonna do is that he's gonna wait for these guys to be lazy idiots and get fired on their own, instead of revealing that he didn't do his homework and find out how much drama was lurking, End of the day, I think Ethan did the right thing, even as a business thing. Ethan's going to end up having a successful acquisition because FiveM makes more money than they spend on the salaries for these guys by a lot. So end of the day, Ethan's still kind of he's going to get some flack for, basically he'll get flack for bringing these guys in that he shouldn't have, but it was still a good deal. He's just trying to mitigate how much flack he gets in trouble, or how much trouble he gets in with his bosses. But moving back to where we're at, this is where the document starts to blame basically blames Ethan for poor management, blames the Groot gang for poor management and poor work. You can see here how our boy Nikes, shout out to Nikes. Ethan Hirsch, yeah, Ethan Hirsch should be a great guest, but it would be career suicide to get on a podcast like this. Anyway, he's my boy Nikes. I love this guy. Nikes is forwarding a RCU exploit, which is extremely. I'm not a coder. I'm not involved in coding. As a casual, I'll tell you, RCU exploits are no good. I don't know what it stands for, but it's really bad. Here it is. Remote code execution. Basically, server owners could infect player PCs with shit. It's bad. It's a very high. Just read this. It's very high priority. Nikes makes a document documenting it and forwards it to the Rockstar team. Nike's says, "Hey, I reported this, but no response." Nike's then messages Disc, who I believe Disc is the author of this document, the primary author. Nike says, "Hey, I submitted this, hasn't been fixed." Disc replies like, "Yeah, it's been brought. It wasn't brought to our attention. The CFX guy shit the bed on it." Bass, who is another term for NTA, that's a Bass. Bass is BAS is Dutch, but it's also NTA, whatever. It's the same person. But Bass is a Dutch name. One S, one A, one S. Bass is basically the visionary, the savant who did FiveM. So without Bass being there, there's not much they can do about it. Nike's is upset about this. Nike says, "Man, maybe I should just get a job there." Um, but yeah. So anyway, they're just talking shop at that point. And then a little bit later, you can see basically same day, but about 11:45 to so an hour after Disc says, "Yeah, I will bring this up in our chat." Neonium reaches out to Nike. So basically, Nike's points out an RCE exploit, and then after 1.5 months, Nike says, "Hey, any progress on the RCE exploit?" This says, "What RCE exploit?" And then Nike's like, "This one," and he says, "Oh, can I mention this in our chat?" And then he mentions it in the chat, and then an hour later, the support guy reaches out. So there you go. Proving those guys don't do their job, I suppose. Nike's the GOAT, doing it all for free. But anyway, essentially, while NTA suspended another critical vulnerability that allows DOS attacks on any FiveM server happens, and NTA being on suspension is not allowed to work officially. It publishes a public workarounds, which the Groot Gang tries to use to get him fired. Here are some server owners complaining about their assets and stuff and their logins. Another malicious. Basically, this is all talking about how the current gang, the current group at Rockstar is not doing their job, and server owners and players are suffering under FiveM. Bunch of server owners messaging. Here is a guy reaching out and saying, "Hey, here is a way people are." So if you're not familiar with this, by the way, FiveM's primary monetization method is boosts. If you go to boost sort by, here's the server browser. You can view it on web. If you sort by boost power, this is people pay for boosts to promote their server, right? Because you may be wondering how on earth is a server with 63 people and a server with 7 people way more popular than all these servers with players? Let's go to players, right? Not even close, right? How is that happening? Well, it's because they have boosts, and you pay for boost with cash. There's a whole system there, right? It's the most monetization. It's the most. It's a ton of financial compensation for FiveM. It's how they get all their money. It's important to note that people are saying, "Hey, people are stealing boosts." There is a exploit within the code that people are able to steal boosts off other servers. We'll get into that in a second. Baggage, don't worry. And this guy sends a whole document and a whole explanation of how these boosts, how this theft is occurring, which is losing monetization money for FiveM and now Rockstar. He also mentions a bug bounty program, but never came out. So whatever. This is all to establish that FiveM under Rockstar is now being run poorly. There's not a lot of work going on, a lot of shit just falling around them, etc. Yeah. Apparently someone wasn't aware cheats for FiveM exists. Yada yada. We're gonna move past this a lot. It does sound like it's being run poorly, but it's kind of becoming like repetitive how much info there is. We are moving past a lot of complaining about the running. LWS, the anti-cheat dev, takes responsibility, and essentially LWS is being a good employee, Root Gang being a bad employee. We're looking at this is the part where you kind of got to start skipping a little bit if you want to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. But the core narrative is that NTA is doing their job despite being suspended by interacting with the public for free because Groot Gang isn't, and NTA is passionate about their project. Got sold out from under them. So also important to note that FiveM employees at Rockstar were not able to review the source code. The GTA, MP team that is now integrated into Rockstar as the Rome team did have access to, or does have access to Rome, like the source code for GTA 5. FiveM employees were not allowed to see the source code. That becomes a plot point later on. Basically, this is where the Groot Gang starts to let down the socials. Apparently, a rogue server owner, an active Reddit user, takes control of the FiveM subreddit, which this guy frames as a big deal. It's really not. It's kind of a nothing burger, but like it should it have happened? No. Is it a big deal? Not really. Some server owner got access to the FiveM subreddit, which I think how do I see reddit.com/FiveM. Like, what is, this is not a very active subreddit beyond this current thing, so whatever. It's basically showing that the PR people are not doing their job in maintaining the PR, like the public facing FiveM programs and whatever. It's an accurate criticism, but we're getting a little minute. Disc is upset we lost FiveM. Remy said that, they got the notification, but we're too lazy, yada yada. Basically the PR and support team were just not doing their jobs. We're gonna move on. And FiveM is degrading. This is another thing I want to say, is that FiveM and RedM are just they're not being updated. The main two developers, NTA, who did like 80% of the work, has been suspended. Disc, who is the other big guy, I guess, is being onboarded and really hasn't worked on it much. So essentially, there was a GTA 5 source code leak that happened at some points, and the FiveM team essentially starts to use that to better optimize FiveM because they cannot use the actual GTA 5 source code from Rockstar, which doesn't make sense because they're working for Rockstar. But I think you'll find that the reason the FiveM team was not given access to the GTA 5 source code is because of documents like the one you're looking at. They cannot stop leaking to the public, and they just weren't trusted with it, I guess. Seems kind of reasonable now, but it is what it is. Basically, eventually the FiveM team gets access to the GTA 5 source code, but it's just up to date to the leak. It's not current, like with all the new DLC on it, which, much to FiveM's chagrin, they don't like that. We go in on the UI guy at Rockstar, who doesn't even know how to use the helicopter in GTA 5 and doesn't even know where Polito Bay is, etc., etc. Seems like basic stuff. Basically, these guys are they're being painted as just complete deadbeats who don't even play FiveM, who've never hosted a server, yada yada. We're gonna move past this because this is getting a little bit minute. Asset escrow is a form of copyright protection for 3D developers to make money on their stuff without getting their stuff stolen and just shopped around. But what ends up happening is they make the asset escrow system, and what ends up happening now is this asset escrowing system, which is supposed to protect 3D modelers and artists. Um, Basically, it ends up being abused because it was never made with monetization in mind. What ends up happening is that a lot of people who made free assets would have their assets stolen and re-uploaded to TebX or whatever, and charged for it. Obviously, that's a problem, but the Rockstar team does not do a great job at it. And moving on, basically, we're gonna move past a lot of this. If you have any questions, let me know. But a lot of what's being said is that the Rockstar team that took over FiveM kind of suppressed the actual founder and suppressed the actual developers and promoted a bunch of leeches who didn't do anything to the top. That is the narrative. That is what we're being told in this document. I'm not saying it's the truth or not. And now we're seeing a lot of developers, like a lot of community contributors and server owners complain about the state of FiveM. And the enforcement team at Rockstar, the bad guys, start deleting these complaints. A lot of these people that complain are getting upset. And eventually, this is all brought to Ethan. Ethan, sorry, whatever, Alex, I don't know, what's the guy's name? Ethan Hirsch or whatever. Basically views it as a non-issue and supports deleting the stuff because he just doesn't want to deal with it. And then the accumulation is that escrow scams still exist. It still exists. Damages the reputation of Rockstar Games too, apparently. So this part might be really relevant to you guys who've watched my stream before. I'm almost hesitant to comment on this excessively because of how relevant it is, but I'll give you the long or the short of it. Is that what's being said here is that it is a common tactic to fill your server with fake players, aka bots, and corporations, commercial operations offer this service for server owners because it essentially incentivizes, instead of paying for a boost, you can now pay for your players. Like, and you know, there's 1,608 players on this Bay Life RP server. Isn't that huge? How many of those are real? You know, and how many of these servers have 800 players on them? You know, are these real players or are they not? And you know, they're basically saying it's a known exploit. People do it all the time, and it's become like a fucking marketplace. And the thing is, what they're saying is that FiveM and now Rockstar management doesn't really care because the bigger the player number, the bigger the population of the server. This is something I've talked about a lot with League of Legends specifically, where I feel like Riot Games doesn't really want to confront the Smurf accounts and the botting that goes on to make Smurf accounts and sell Smurf accounts because it financially is incentivized through a bigger player number. It's an issue, but they're not really trying to solve it. I think they should try to solve it. I think there is hurt happening for both these games through fake player numbers. They just can't. It's not readily available to them. Like when you see, I don't know. I don't want to get into the diatribe about League Smurf accounts and stuff, but I do think that having fake accounts hurts your game in ways that are hard to measure with metrics. I think it introduces a disposable account system where, for example, in League, people don't really care about getting bans. People make multiple accounts and they treat people like shit because they don't care about getting bans. People smurf a lot more. The quality of games goes down because instead of having like a game where like 90% of people are playing in their MMR, you have a game where like three out of every 10 people are on a Smurf account and they don't care if they win or lose, and they're either grossly above the current MMR or grossly below it, and it leads to low quality games that in the end will lead to legitimate players leaving and more bots replacing them. And the thing is, bot accounts don't really buy skins. So I think there is actual there is actual harm happening for these games with these bot accounts. But like Lolman said again, it's hard to objectify the damage through a metric, and so they just don't care. They can't. An executive can't view it on a spreadsheet, therefore they don't care. Um, anyway, um, this issue exists. Some of you might think it's interesting because I was recently like talking about a specific server and thinking, holy shit, are there really this many people on it? I'll leave it at that. And then fraudulent boosts. This is different than the stealing boost, but this is basically a system where currently you pay $5 a month per upvote. You can have up to, I think it's like something like it's like this server. Let's see. This fucking, you're talking about the fall of FiveM, man. Some of this filter just doesn't work. I mean, let's look at boost power. Like this boost has 7,513 boosts. Red side RP. Like if those are €5 a month, man, like do the math on how much that server is paying a month. Allegedly, the server is paying $37,000 a month to maintain the status. So you can see how this would be a very financially important aspect of FiveM. Are featured servers different than boost? I think they're different, but they're still paid for. If that makes sense. Different, but still paid for. Possibly more, because these are always on the sidebar. Don't know. It's not covered here. But apparently there are people trying to is this an issue? Hold on, I'm gonna read ethics comment. Is this an issue at all if Rockstar co-ops the whole software, integrating it into base game, selling millions of copies? I'm late to dissertation, sorry. I think to me it is. I think if, imagine this. Let's say you go to a restaurant for dinner, and outside the restaurant there are like 80 cars, indicating a full parking lot and a packed restaurant. So you think, oh, this is gonna be like a hot spot. Like this is gonna be cool. This place is popping. And then you get inside and there's like 5 people. No doubt you would feel some kind of letdown, or you would feel betrayed that you were lied to about the amount of people on at the restaurant, right? You'd feel manipulated slightly, right? I think it's the same case with player counts when they're faked, is that you see, you see, I mean, I'll go back to the player counts again, but you see 1,675 people, and you get on the server, and if there's not 1,600 people, it's more like 100 or 200. You're gonna be like, what the fuck? You know, I was told like there's more people. It feels like a low quality product, and I think it leads to customer expectations being underfulfilled. The purpose of faking user count is to attract high real world count. Yeah, I mean it is, yes. And in theory, it's a lot like it behaves a lot like a MLM, or like a a pyramid. It's like a pyramid scheme, right? Where in theory, if we just attract 1 million people to work under us, then it doesn't matter. If we, it's essentially like a conductor of a train standing on the front of the train and laying down track in front of the train. Like in theory, if everything works flawlessly and more players keep joining and joining and joining, the track keeps going down and no problem. But at some point, there's going to be a hiccup, and the train's going to run out of track, and it's gonna fall off the track. You know what I'm saying? Like at some point, the player influx is not going to keep pace with the bot account, and players are going to be left with a unfulfilling product. Is my explanation. And I completely agree. It does say that Rockstar doesn't really care, but I don't think there's an argument. I think Rockstar never really cared. They kind of just they bought FiveM because they could. They didn't buy FiveM because they were passionate. This is a discussion about some guys trying to like buy FiveM boosts, and this is a guy like, dude, you know that's illegal, right? I'm not doing that. And he's like, do not be afraid. You make $70,000 or something. It's showing how much money is going into the boosting and the fraudulent boost situation. Moving past this a little bit more because we're kind of getting redundant. This is when the whole situation kind of devolves into a workplace drama in my mind. basically, the rest of this is going to end up being, hey, our job sucks, my coworkers suck, and my boss doesn't care. And I think it's true. I believe it. But it's not terribly relevant for the majority of people that are reading this document. So I'm going to save a lot of time by kind of skimming through a little bit here. Essentially, what ends up happening is all the original developers of FiveM are now gone. They were fired or quit from Rockstar. And Groot Gang, the deadbeats who never did anything, but NTA couldn't bring himself to fire, are now the higher ups at Rockstar in charge of FiveM. And FiveM is not getting any better. It's just getting worse. It's degrading, allegedly. So an open letter was made that was allegedly from a bunch of really passionate community contributors to FiveM over the years, and they were like, "What the fuck is happening?" And then this FiveM is this open letter that was on the FiveM forums is basically just a catalyst for a lot of the FiveM team leaving Rockstar. It's crazy to me, but basically what happens is NTA responds to this open letter, and then Officer Tenpenny, who is also known as LWSS, who is the anti-cheat head dev, responds to it. And then Zernicki, who is their PR person, also responds to it. And then Discuse, who is our author of this document, most likely, the only RedM developer and the one of the other major workers on FiveM, responds to it publicly. Keep in mind, basically, this is the equivalent of like Bungie devs going on the Bungie forums and talking shit about their coworkers. That's essentially what's happening. Is a giant open forum is posted, and like a bunch of different devs jump in and personally attack each other. It's not crazy to me that this ended with several people's career ending at Rockstar. Discuse is here talking about how they don't like the PR situation, and they're gonna jump in this open thread and fight and talk things out. And then they're communicating about like, this is bullshit at work. You have a lot of DMs from Discuse here who's talking about how it's not fair. Remy, aka Groot, is the director and never did anything, and Sasha's the lead of engineering, and they did nothing during FiveM, etc., etc. And then at this point, the big thread gets closed. Ethan Hirsch gets aware of it. People, have to come talk to HR, and I presume this is when a lot of people get fired or quit. We're gonna move down a little bit further. This is when it searches a scapegoat. So after the open letter events, basically Hirsch starts blaming Disc for this, allegedly. Disc kind of starts burning bridges. He doesn't want to work there anymore if NTA doesn't work there. He's unhappy with the fact that Root Gang got higher up in the architecture of the company than him. They get paid more, etc. He views them as deadbeats. Of course, NTA is also not happy with this. These guys both end up quitting. And then as we move on, you'll see that a few other people also end up quitting. During this time as well, just before Discuse quits, a group of Alt-5 members, Alt-V, whatever you call them, Alt-5 members join. These are people hired to Rockstar because apparently FiveM needs more employees. They need more people to work on the program. And without NTA, it's all falling apart. So Alt-5 employees get hired. The assertion here is that Discuse and this document, the author of this manifesto we're reading believes that they presented this document to get hired, and they believe it was 100% AI, GPT-0. They think it's crazy that they got hired in the Rockstar games using a 100% AI generated document. They also allege that the Alt-5 project is just copy and pasted code from FiveM, because FiveM is open source. These guys get hired anyways, and these guys apparently only care about the money. These guys are also Russian, apparently, for the record. I don't know if you're seeing a trend or not. the Alt 5 team were told that they basically joined and got jobs, and another assertion is made here that that the Alt 5 team was kind of hired at the behest of Groot Gang, and that the Alt 5 team was hired to cooperate with Groot Gang, and these guys were kind of just like buddies that were brought in. Here you have the reintroduction of Fortar, who is a Rockstar employee who got hired from FiveM and doesn't like these Alt 5 guys. Thorium, same name. Basically, these OG guys try to fight against Alt 5 and now Root Gang to get like justice in their workplace, and it doesn't work out. Essentially, the long or the short of it is that Discuse leaves Rockstar. I think he gets fired in late 2014, or sorry, in late 2024, or mid 2024. It's unclear. He has European dates here, but I believe that it's either June 10th or the 10th of October. Discuse gets fired. That's essentially what's going on. Shortly after, on his way out, Discuse DMs a couple other devs, and they say they're quitting or they are finding other jobs and not giving notice. So again, you can see just how much I'm scrolling by because it's all just documentation that reasserts that Groot Gang is not doing their job, that Alt 5 crew is incompetent, and that no one cares. I'm looking for a certain set of DMs that was kind of useful here. Discu says on the 5th of, so I suppose this is, I suppose this probably is October now because this is the 5th and the other one was the 6th. So probably October is when this guy quit or was fired. Thorium is basically another developer at Rockstar hired from FiveM. He says, "I wish I had more fighting spirit like you. I'm gonna find a new job. Maybe not even game development, which sucks." Yeah, and Discuse just says, "Yeah, I'm going down fighting. I don't care. I'm gonna go down fighting this bullshit," and so he does. We move on. This is probably where the document loses the most steam to me. It's alleging that Ethan is okay. It makes three assertions here. One is that Ethan is a optics metagame, playing an optics metagame with his bosses at Rockstar. Ethan is trying to carve out a bigger piece of the pie, and Ethan is outright corrupt, and at some point made a deal with Groot. He's right on 2 or 3 counts. I'll put it that way. One, yes, Ethan is playing an optics metagame with his bosses at Rockstar. Everybody is. He has falsely pitched these individuals as so-called leaders of FiveM and completely misrepresent their actual impact. He needs to keep them around as paper tigers so that his lies to effort management Rockstar don't unravel. That is 100% on the money. I think you got him. You nailed Ethan to the wall with that one. You're probably right. He probably has pitched these individuals as so-called leaders because he promoted them high up in FiveM. And he probably has completely misrepresented their actual impact. And without NTA, the actual impact is not being felt. Second, yes, Ethan is probably trying to establish a bigger piece of the pie. That's how executives work at companies. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. He aims to establish his own division and branch within Rockstar that he can control. This would also explain why he's hiring 30 plus staff and members for a project that takes 3 to 5 to maintain. The more staff he has, the greater his influence. Yep, we are talking about a corporate executive. That's what they do, man. That is what he's doing. The third one, I find this to be very, very, very out there. Ethan is outright corrupt and at some point made a deal with Groot. This would explain why Groot's friends received all the senior and management roles, even before the rest of the team managed to introduce themselves to Ethan. Deltanic was in contact. Deltanic is Groot, by the way. Deltanic is in contact with Ethan even before official communication channels established. Yeah, so on 2 or 3 counts, he's right. The third one is complete conjecture. I think is wrong. I don't think there's any kind of deal. I think the first one kind of covers that. Ethan can't get rid of Groot because he pitched him as a visionary and leader of FiveM. So he's not made a deal with him, but he effectively has because he can't just fire the guy right away or he'll look bad to his bosses. It's more likely that Ethan is just kind of waiting for Groot to get fired through incompetence. But yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna wrap this back around to something I said earlier and just say I think the most likely scenario is that Ethan was a executive in charge of developing a Rome system, Rockstar Online modding engine, which would have been for ideally GTA 6, and that probably was he was using some developers that were initially modders in the GTA 5 modding community, but they got stomped out with a lawsuit. He offered a few of them a job, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago at this point, maybe 7 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And since then, this small group has been working on developing Rome for likely GTA 6. While he's working on this Groot guy snakes NTA as the owner and founder of FiveM. NTA does not want this to happen, but Groot kind of snaked him and started an acquisition deal with Ethan. Ethan probably didn't want this initially, but it fell into his lap. A situation in which he could, look like a genius to his bosses. So he agreed to the deal because all this deal really gives him is control over the only modding platform for GTA 5. Their initial plan was probably just to let GTA 5 wither and die away normally when GTA 6 came out, but now he can own FiveM too. So they do. And now the plan with Rome is probably expanded slightly to try to introduce Rome to GTA 5 before GTA 6, if possible, because now they also have FiveM. We're unsure if we're going to see that or not yet, though. Moving through a little bit further, here you have a meme that Disc is. To me, this indicates Disc wrote this thing. So obvious. Moving along. Ethan starts to regret having the Groot gang and the Alt 5 team because they just don't know how to do their job. And then eventually these clashes continued until this contract was about to expire. Around then, Ethan would be much easier to resolve these contracts by pleasing Groot gang and Alt 5, despite damaging. Yeah, basically, this contract ended. He was let go. He was not. Yeah, I mean, that's why I think Disc is a primary author for this. Is he's becoming very self-congratulatory. So anyway, here's a here's a private, you can read this if you want. Feel free to go to the website and go to this section. But this is Disc saying all this. And tell me if this doesn't strike you a lot like the author, but just saying I instead of Disc. But anyway, basically this is a recollection of the firing, or the management troubles they had. I realize I've been on this last half for about an hour, so I'm gonna kind of skip past this a little bit. So we're at the point where we can finally summarize and say original developers have quit. LWSS also quit, and then you have Forthar who also quits, and then boom, every single original client developer 5M's gone. You just have a bunch of bozos. Here's more DMs from Disc, which is again crazy. Something stinks, yada yada. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the Alt 5 drama, which is that Alt 5 got hired off of a closed source project, and they copied code from 5M. So Alt 5 is a bunch of posers who stole code from 5M, which is an open source project, yada yada. Doesn't really matter to any of us now, except for the fact that these are the guys running 5M now. Apparently, also, there's an accusation that in 2022, a GTA 5 source code leak was made. In 2023, the source code was leaked publicly on MediaFire, and Tickle Me Pickle was the source code. They basically, the assertion is that the Alt 5 team bought the GTA 5 source code and leaked it. I don't know how credible this is. I don't know. you can judge this part for yourself. It's all in Russian here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, this actually doesn't matter that much, but it would paint a picture that yeah. So this. Okay, here's the actual. I was looking for this. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Uh, here's what the actual accusation is made. Um, they were literally in talks with Rockstar regarding employment. During this, they bought and leaked the GTA 5 source code from people that make and sell GTA Online cheats. These leakers now work as senior Rockstar engineers and make upwards of 140k euros stocks and bonuses. Um, I don't know what the motivation is to either Titty Man's. This is just the there's DMs apparently confirming this. I At this point I was 3 hours into reading this. I did not have the willpower to power through every single line. I just kind of got the broad strokes here. So you know this reveals this to Ethan, and they don't care. We move on, and then we talk about all five developers more and how they're apparently making sex games now. Uh, that's what this guy makes. Who cares? They're horny. Whatever. Um, anyway, maybe GTA 6 will have mods for or sex or whatever. I don't know. Um, moving along a little bit longer, this is also talking about how their projects are unprofessional. It's kind of getting to real like lukewarm shit, if you're being honest. Don't skip the sex scene part. Okay, you know what? You want to see it? This is basically all there is, by the way. It says, for real, I make sex sims like 3DX chat on Unreal Engine 5 and PBR for VR, sex game sim. Not bad. When it is done, we need a multiplayer mod for the roleplay community. It is planned as a multiplayer game. Just seen some muscle male characters and some pricey vehicles, and it's perfect for roleplay. Hentai for little boys, photorealistic for adult guys. There you go. Did you see what you wanted to see? I mean, they got to read on a certain RP community. I hate to break it to you. They have a market if they want it. Not saying which. There's a subplot here at some point that isn't mentioned, that isn't that important. That NTA was at some point paying for this guy's boyfriends from Group Gang to live in the Netherlands completely free of charge. So, you know, whatever. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, here we're going to talk about this is probably the second most relevant part of this whole section is the GTA multiplayer section. Is that allegedly Barska, the creators of multiplayer, GTA multiplayer, and the project director for Rome. Apparently, this guy is a hack who has never worked a day in his life and a complete bozo. This guy does not know what he's doing, and that apparently under code analysis, NTA suspected GTA multiplayer stealing parts of FiveM's code. Apparently, a very old and respected GTA modding community member left a forum post that said it was 90% FiveM's code. So another allegation that FiveM is the only original modding platform. GTA MP guys are frauds who got a job at Rockstar and are now making Rome. They're a bunch of frauds who don't know what they're doing. Yeah, I talked about NoPixel a while ago. We'll talk about them. They'll come up again in a second. But this is basically just saying that the authors of this document think that the Rome project manager and the Rome developers are unqualified and don't know what they're doing, and they fake their backgrounds to get hired at Rockstar. There's a lot of anecdotal, very context dependent, like forum posts, like a Steam forum post about the Just Cause 3 mod, about how it was bad. Like it's possible, but this is not the smoking gun that they think it is. They're just it's basically a hit piece on the current Rome developers, if that's to be believed. And then you have another hit piece on the FiveM's PR guys, the current FiveM's PR guys. This is, I mean, let me just boil this down to a few things. Okay. Why does this matter? Well, this matters because the current people at Rockstar developing FiveM are apparently unqualified, and the people they hired to make their successor are apparently also unqualified. Is it believable? Yeah, but is this one side of a two-sided story? Yeah, absolutely. You know, absolutely. There's a lot of like unhappy ex lover energy coming out of this, if that makes sense, right? Like these are the actions and these are the actions and opinions of a person who was wronged and very disgruntled, maybe rightfully so. But I do think the situation we're left with is that I'm not really sure what Rockstar is going to do, because they can't just kill FiveM. It's a lot of money that comes in for them, and they also need people to keep it up to date, because if it falls apart, then someone else will just copy the open source and make their own thing, because FiveM inherently was open source as of like very recently. So if Rockstar kills FiveM, another FiveM pops up that they no longer control. So what are you going to do? You know, like, you have to maintain this zombified corpse and keep it moving until GTA 6 at least. And I think you're right about that, Kenny. That's probably what they'll do, but we don't know how long that is, you know? 5.0 for NoPixel is thought to be on Rome. We don't really know. It could be, but also could be on something else, you know? I think if Rockstar, if NoPixel 5.0 is on Rome, then we might see Rome in late 2025, or maybe mid 2025 if it's really early. I think it's more likely that elements of Rome and the I think it's likely that we see Rome come out in 2026 as a experimental thing to test before GTA 6, and NoPixel releases 5.0 on FiveM, but it is compatible with Rome, so that when Rome comes out, there is a seamless transition for NoPixel. That is my current guess. Rome is basically the Rockstar online modding engine, the successor to FiveM, made in-house by Rockstar and no longer open source, but maybe better because it uses the source code of GTA 5. So we don't know. Pasty did say, yeah, we talked a lot about that early on, the FiveM crash outs. There's explanation behind all of that in here about the crash outs. It's interesting. We'll see. I mean, I think if Rome comes out, you will have real mod tools. I mean, that's kind of that's the whole pitch, right? So if it's if it comes out and if it works, then I think you're gonna get your wish at least. But so it is kind of sad knowing what happened now. The history of it's a little tragic. But I know the guy ends up okay. I mean, ends up with at least 20 million euros, so I think he'll be all right. So the current state of FiveM is apparently not good, and these guys are bozos, yada yada yada. So what does this mean for like the future of what does this mean for the layman, right? Let's just talk a little bit about being a layman in the GTA 5 sphere. If you're a viewer, if you're a consumer, and you're not a modder and you're not a server owner, what does it mean? Nothing. It means nothing. At some point, there's going to be a big transition from FiveM to Rome. It's in everybody's interest involved to make that as smooth as possible. We don't know when that'll be. There'll likely be monetization in it for the players. We don't know what that looks like, but I can't imagine Rockstar releases a free version. Likely a subscription, I think, is the easiest, but it's also possible that it's more weighted on the server owners, because currently for FiveM, the monetization is all server owner based on boost power, featured servers, hosting, TebEx, etc. So there's kind of right now the way FiveM is structured is the average player pays nothing, and server owners basically pay everything, and that is a model that is uh, enforced by the fact that players can pay to get priority on these servers and pay for assets now with Rockstar owning it. They're allowed to monetize. Um, so the current system isn't perfect, and there is monetization. The monetization is just server by server. That 1675 is largely a fake number. We discussed that earlier, but there's obviously botted numbers on these lists. You know, not all these servers are as full as they are made out to be. Let's see how many people NoPixel has. Right now we're full, I think. 220. Yeah, 220 out of 220. What purple's got? Purple RP. We're at 264 out of 600. Much higher server cap. More than NoPixel. And then Onyx, the server I frequent. Onyx hides their server count pretty effectively with the 7S7, but they are allegedly at 135 today. So, just if you're wondering about that. Let's get back to the server. What does it mean for the average player? Average player means at some point there's going to be a monetization amount for the average player. Whenever FiveM goes to Rome, whenever that may be, in a year or 3 years, 6 months, there will be a monetization on players, I assume. We don't know what that is, but hard to believe it would happen otherwise. But the real takeaway is that nothing else matters. Like nothing else is happening for the average players, the average streamer, the average viewer. It's it really doesn't matter much, you know. You kind of just spent 3 hours listening to me summarize workplace drama. Just to tell you that NoPixel might or may not have advanced access and amongst other servers. But that is the history of FiveM. You know, if you're wondering, I've explained the history of FiveM for you. There's a little bit more with all this shit at the bottom, but you can kind of tell the way that the author views himself by this end part more than anything. And I think this part's probably the most interesting to get an insight on who you're listening to, because unfortunately, like, for any story, your narrator makes a lot of your narrator influences whether you buy it or not, right? And so your narrator believes himself to be a, you know, two brothers fist bump themselves, is going to hell to confront rats. Out of the rats, one of them was a friend who betrayed them and part of their family. Another corrupted official who used. They view themselves as heroes who are, you know, they quit a long-term project. Here's the TLDR, but you could have read that in the first place if you wanted to. It's a sad story about a open source project with the best intentions being corrupted by rats who allegedly sell the house out from under them and are in the process of running it into the grounds. I view this as a kind of tell-all, clear the air before the name FiveM is forgotten amongst the name Rome, and players don't like. I view this as a tribute and a clearing the air from a few people, majority disc and LWSS, and maybe some other community contributors. It's their attempt to explain what happens and why FiveM is shit before it no longer matters anymore. They just want to tell the truth. And I think honestly, this disc guy has a lot of guilt about the way it all went down, and he wishes he spoke up more and defended NTA and didn't let this deception happen. And he wants to clear the air for the, you know, the actual what actually took place. You know, shockingly, there's a lot more after the summary. Here you can see the actual takeaway is that FiveM and RedM are projects that sustain themselves, and the current teams reap the benefits. So why is Ethan allowed to keep slackers on the team? This is more like, dude, why are these guys allowed to keep arounds? Why can't we keep these guys arounds? They were like, I mean, here's the alleged like contributors, right? Blatherstorm, aka NTA, contributed a fuck ton, contributed a little, and then not anymore. He's fired now. This guy contributed small amounts over the years, fired. Thorium contributed small amounts, fired. Doesn't work there anymore. LWS, the anti-cheat guy, contributed small amounts, gone. Then you have two community guys who still work on it, and then you have these two guys that work on it a lot recently. This is just trying to tell you, like, listen, FiveM is no longer being developed by the intelligent hard workers. It's being developed by the idiots, and it might fall to shit. And then also, RedM is dead apparently. I don't know how dead RedM is really going to be. I'm not a RedM developer. I've played Red Dead RP very sparingly. I do look forward to future Red Dead servers, but I don't think this massively matters. I think the intents and purposes, yeah, intents and purposes. I think anyone working on RedM at this point has given up on proper mod tools. So I don't really think this matters to many RedM enjoyers. It'll fade into the wayside, which is unfortunate. But I have a theory that since Red Dead 2 is not going to be replaced by GTA 6, a successor to RedM will probably come up at some point and start developing again. That's just my internal thoughts. What percentage of truthfulness reliability do you think the author has? I think about like 65 to 70%. I would say most of it's true. There's probably a lot left out about their actions, the author's actions, about what they did to contribute to the downfall of FiveM. There's probably a lot that's just like completely left out because it doesn't fit their narrative. You know, for instance, we talk a lot about Groot Gang and how Groot Gang's bad guys and stuff. We don't talk at all about the other developers and what they were doing. Everyone else is apparently just a hard worker, keeps their head down. Seems a little unlikely. You know, we talk about FiveM being a hacky project and that Rome is going to be built on the source code and it's going to be a big deal. Read this if you're curious about Rome. It is actually genuinely somewhat useful. It's a bit long though. Basically, the consensus is that you know, I mentioned we're talking about NoPixel again. Yeah, exactly that, Pasty. It's mostly factual, but it's hyperbolic towards how bad the guys were. Not exactly wrong, just hyperbolic. And it doesn't feature a lot of information about the total context, just about what they want to talk about. But if you're interested in NoPixel and the future of FiveM, here is... FiveM is open source. That's why I think Rockstar can't kill it and get rid of these bozos. It's because someone else will just make a new version. Thanks for the sub, by the way, to Pasty. Anyway, so last part about NoPixel, for those interested. NoPixel basically early access to Rome, and this author believes that NoPixel is going to be the role model for the new platform. Understandable why they'll give him preferential treatment, but they think secret clubs and deals go against the whole aspect of the community openness that NCA started with the open source project years ago. Hershey's strategy apparently is one of monopolization and aiming to confine user base within a closed ecosystem with no viable alternatives. There you go. That's what they think the future is. This is them talking about Ethan and how Ethan's a piece of shit again. But this really reads like this to me really reads like I don't like my boss. This is like a hit piece on Ethan. Like this is the part that they hope makes it to Ethan's boss's desk. You can see right here. If you're his boss, Ethan will lie to you about the current state of affairs. Yada yada. We know. We get it, man. You don't like your boss. No one ever does. I believe he's not good, but I also believe that no one's perfect. they believe that Groot Gang is like in cohorts with him. I'm sorry, I'm going in circles here. The big takeaway, the big final notes that before I move on for the rest of the stream is that they do believe that the rest of Rockstar devs are good developers and that GTA 6 will be a hit game and that this kind of mismanagement and incompetency is not reflective of Rockstar. I could read this beat for beat, but I'll read the important part. FiveM.Team has no complaints against any other Rockstar employees, even those who manage Hirsch. It's understandable most of them are busy people. So basically, the original FiveM.Team or whoever wrote this does not want to burn the bridge with Rockstar. They want to be hired by real Rockstar. Whatever. You get what it is. They have a lot of respect for Rockstar, and they think GTA 6 will be a good game. This is not representative of Rockstar. Another complaint about their boss. Original dev team doesn't regret leaving. They're proud of what they made. Still an experience. No, they don't regret it. Anyway. It's important to distinguish that FiveM is not Rockstar. FiveM is owned by Rockstar, and FiveM takes orders from Rockstar, but they have much less dev power than even Grove Street Games, and a lot that comes from GitHub community. Yeah, so GTA 6 is gonna be good. Go buy it when it comes out. Yeah. I mean, well, what is like a perfect end credit song? Roll the credits. There it is, man. Now let's look at the stats while we're listening to this for a second. How many words? 73,000, excluding screenshots. I would equate this to about 85,000, maybe 100K with screenshots. There was a lot of screenshots. How long did it take me to read? About 4 hours. 4 hours, 26 minutes if you read the entire thing. Speaking time, 6 hours. So we shaved off about 3.5 hours by summarizing like I did. What was the most used word? Team. Then NTA. Yeah, that's, I mean, we can reflect on this bad boy now. I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I got you, Dendo, or Denso. Just make sure to sub. I'll undo it. Wow. There it is again. I was trying to keep track of the key names being used. No problem, dude. I got you, man. Thanks for the sub. But real talk. Just to reiterate again, if you're asking for my personal opinion, I'm pretty sure this guy wrote this shit. I think it's likely to think that NTA wrote this, but I don't know. I mean, I think NTA was definitely consulted in this, but I think the main writer was, or the main author was Alexi or Disc, and then I think LWSS also played a part in it. But I would expect that all these people considered OGs at some point are disgruntled with the situation and would have contributed. You think they should run through an AI detection tool? Let's see. See what I get. It's not gonna let me. There's way too many characters. It's a little bit over the 5,000 word count. I have to upgrade. I just got 5,000 in the middle somewhere. Is that really too much? Probably human. I mean, I think it's probably gonna come as human regardless because all the proper nouns. I think it was. I think this was handwritten personally. Anyway, go buy GTA 6, guys. And if you want to contact them, go ahead. FiveM.Team.Proton. FiveM.Team at Proton. All right. I'm gonna pause now for everyone to subscribe and give subs while I consider my next move. What do I do now? I might get on purple actually for all that. I think I do get on purple here actually.
Hell week. Hell week. Hell week. Hell week.
Ooh, we got some subs. Oh, hype train. Can we do a hype train real quick? Wouldn't that be cool? What if we did a hype train real quick? Was this a waste of time? Absolutely. But I'll tell you a secret. Almost everything on Twitch is a waste of time. It's hard to be productive on this server. Thanks for the 20 gifted, Anonymous. Hype train engage, dude. Fuck yeah. Dude, I am producing subs. You know what? I'll say it. That was fun. Fun to talk about. It's like doing a book report back in college, or well, actually I failed out of college. I like it back in high school. Thanks to the 5 gifted, Dewey, and thanks Fred. A lot of subs coming in. I'll thank you each individually, but thank you Jocko for the gift in tier 1. Kenny, thanks for the 9 months. Alleycat, thanks for the 26 months, 2 years. Anonymous for the 20 gifted. 5 from Dewey, and 5 from Fred once again. A level 4 hype train's huge for me. Should you do drama? Yeah, I mean, I think I might just become the community like Reddit guy. Just they used to, like, people used to go over Reddit and be like, so what's the drama today? But then I think people will hate me because they hate Reddit. And they view Reddit as like an evil thing. React phase. Deep dives in the GTA drama. I mean, I do have a very unique perspective on being involved in it so long. Being the target of it.
Ooh-wee.
I'm the farm YouTube shorts. Pirate software style. I don't know if I could do pirate software style, man. That guy's got a... I can't figure out my mic settings. I can't get my mic to be like deep enough. Been enjoying Big Vic. Thanks to the stream. Thanks, man. I've enjoyed Big Vic too. I've actually had a lot of fun on purple. I know I sound like kind of a like a uncaring nihilist when I talk about servers. I talk about like no servers ever paid me to be there. But I just mean like I just play on whatever server's fun. And purple's fun, so I play on purple, But it doesn't mean I hate NoPixel or hate Onyx. I wish they were better. That's all. I wish they were more fun. Yarnless, thank you for the 5 gifted. Is that a level 5 hype train on the horizon? Holy shits. There's gonna be a lot of fishing game noise coming on. I wonder if I can mute fishing game. I might have to mute fishing game for a little bit. It's loud.